Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Bruce gets it into Garland. Garland on the handoff. Here it is. Here it is. Mitchell out front. Unloads a 3-ball. Bullseye! Bullseye! Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell unloads a bomb and buries it. Cavaliers up. 114, 113.
Leonard straight away. Cavs right, moves left for the Clippers. Backs his way inside against Grant. Pirouettes in the paint. Looks for help with 10 to shoot. Bounce pass George at the top. Attacks the lane. Right down Broadway. A right-handed hammer. PG 13. Jams it through. 110-89. Clippers on top. 6 minutes to play in the fourth.
Here's a Fox steal. Got a breakaway coming up for Sacramento. Chased by Dunn. Drops it to Monk. Hammer time thrown down by Malik Monk. That's as good as it gets for Sacramento in transition. Fox with the steal. His former Wildcat collegiate teammate at the University of Kentucky, Malik Monk, with a big-time hammer.
They come back the other way. Toronto in the far corner. Schroeder cut off near the baseline. Goes up top to Achua. Back to Schroeder. Turning into the paint at the free throw line. Back out to Pascal on the perimeter. The wing three is good. Busted. Pascal has been big here in the fourth quarter.
Let's pass for Tatum straight away against Barrett. Got Porzingis right side. He's going to take the deep three. Got it! Dagger by Porzingis with 89 seconds remaining. And the Celtics have scored 9 straight down the stretch to lead by 3.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. That other voice you hear is Andrew Rogers. We're here with you on a Thursday, almost the end of the month. I don't know how that happened already. The NBA is in full swing, which I know Andrew's very excited about.
I'm okay with it. It's late October, though, and this is the best time of year. I mean, we always talk about how it's either fall or like back end of winter. That tends to be like really good times of the year.
Yeah.
Because back into winter, you get into the Super Bowl.
NFL playoffs.
NFL playoffs in total, and then you get, March Madness.
Mm-hmm.
But like this time of year is the ultimate sports fan time of year because you have college football that's getting closer and closer towards season's end.
You get a lot of high leverage games.
Right. You have the NBA starting, the NHL started last week, Major League Baseball, playoffs and World Series. It's just like everything hits you at once.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a sports fan, or if you want to be a sports fan, the time to be a sports fan is October 25th.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've got, hockey's going hot and heavy now. Basketball just getting underway here. And college basketball starts in week and a half, basically.
Yeah, I didn't even include that. So when college football is still going, college basketball is here.
Which I love. So I would probably wait. Like, I like baseball. I love the baseball playoffs, but I'll take college basketball over Major League Baseball. So I'd wait like a week and a half. Like early November is my real sweet spot because you got college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA. You got hockey. You got our college hockey going as well. We're gonna have some little UNO hockey. We're gonna talk today as well with
the captain,
Nolan Sullivan. The cap, They called you Captain Rogers in the tweet too. I don't know. I didn't get a captain. It was just and this other guy's here too.
That's just Rushy doing Rushy things.
Okay,
because so their SID calls me Captain Rogers because of Steve Rogers.
Sure, Captain America over here.
Well, I am Captain America.
I've never seen you.
I'm just in Miley Cyrus form right now.
Okay, I've never
just wait till I turn into Hannah Montana.
I've never seen you with the shield or anything.
It's a trash can lid.
Fair, totally fair. So Nolan Sullivan will join us at 7:45. Talk a little bit about Omaha hockey. They got a big series this weekend with Ohio State.
Top 20.
We gave away some tickets to that matchup yesterday. If you were listening to the show, Trent did a great job of
picking Avery.
Just realizing that Avery's way smarter than we are.
I'm still. I think I have nightmares about that. But, my mom gave me a little heart-to-heart line of questioning after that show yesterday. And she's like, hey, you guys have to start asking better guess who questions, because you guys ask questions that aren't really guess who related and you get nowhere because of it. She's like, ask if they're bald, ask if they're a blonde, ask if they are tall or short,
what they look like.
She's like, that's how it's do they wear glasses, do they not, things like that. And I'm
but isn't everybody tall?
Yeah, you're smarter. Yeah, everybody's at least over 4 foot, right?
Yeah, so everybody's tall, so that doesn't really work.
That is interesting though, because that.
So where do you cap that, Shane?
about 5'2".
That is what got Avery over the top on the rock was, is he bald? I do feel like some of our questions are helpful. Like, is it an athlete?
Yeah, those things are fine.
Yeah.
I think she was referring more to my Leonardo DiCaprio question.
Just real specific.
Does he only date people under the age of 25?
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. No, yeah. So we did a great job. We did a nice job of getting some tickets out to Trent yesterday with Avery taking home the victory on that one. I technically won the game, but it wasn't as impressive as Avery knocking out the rock and about 4 guests there. We've got Mitch Sherman from The Athletic coming up at 8 o'clock. We're going to try and win you a little bit of money at 8:45. Brian Edwards, our guy, joining us at 8:45. And then Michael Bruntz at 9 o'clock.
Hey, how do you spell serum?
Serum, like SERUM, I think.
Thank you.
Plain old serum.
Well, TK on YouTube said, AR, you need about 80 pounds of muscle to get to Steve. And I said, I'm just Steve before the super serum.
Yeah, you're pre-serum.
But I just didn't know how to spell serum.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be easier to ask you.
Fair. Yeah, you're pre-serum, Steve. And then we will wrap up the show with the Hurrdat Hot Seat. If you want to join us at any time, call 888-638-4876 on the Hurrdat Sports Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. And listen, if you've got a hot seat question you want to ask us, just chime in.
Or a hot take.
Or a hot take. Anything hot or cold, whatever you want. Not everybody likes a hot breakfast. I do. I'm not going to enjoy one today, but
tell me about it.
Well, okay. So just full disclosure, I walked into the lovely Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill here about 7 seconds before we got on the air, which is very unlike me.
Well, yeah, because it was 11, or I keep saying 11. It was 6:56, and I look at Shane and I go, Ravi coming today?
Yeah, Shane texts me as I'm driving like an F1 racer through the parking lot here to try and get in here on time, and he goes, good morning. Are you okay? Because it is very out of character. I'm usually at least 15 minutes early. Sometimes
he's not. He's normally 7 seconds early.
Sometimes I'm here at like 6:30. I'm never here as early as Shane, except for when he has to give me a ride because somebody ran into my car. But and so I'm walking in, and the reason I was late is I was at a local fast food establishment because I get my breakfast every morning.
A new one. I haven't seen you walk in.
Yeah, it's the last time I will try it there. I was in line for legitimately 20 minutes. And there were only 2 cars in line, so it's not like they were just backed up, something crazy. And I think I saw why that it was taking so long as I was sitting at the window, just looking at my clock and looking inside and looking at the clock on my car and looking inside. And this worker is, and listen, it's a hard job. I understand that, but not a lot of urgency was noticed. They're just kind of like meandering back and forth. And to be fair, I think she was the only one in there, so that's tough as well.
I work hard at school.
I'm sure she was working hard. She just wasn't working real fast. And so I'm sitting there literally from the time that I pull up went to the order thing until the time I got my food was a full 20 minutes. And they did not get my order right.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Like, if you're going to take 20 minutes, I need you to get it right. Like,
you shouldn't take 20 minutes to begin with.
No, but if you're going to, like, by God, that needs to be right. Because I went out to dinner last night at like a nice sit-down restaurant, and I don't think it was 20 minutes from the time that I sat down until I had like my first course at like a legitimate restaurant. And we got drinks in there and whatever. And it's like, how does it take 20 minutes at Dunkin' Donuts? And we're not taking.
Oh, you threw him under the bus, huh?
Oh, shoot, yeah. My bad. I mean,
well,
they're no beanery. Our great friends at the beanery. That's my mistake.
Yeah, if it's any consolation, I've gone there after a show. I got a haircut over at Sports Clips, and this was a few months ago. And I was like, there was somebody in Sports Clips drinking a sort of like a refresher type drink.
Oh, yeah,
but it was like mixed with an energy drink. And I'm like, I'm not really in the mood for coffee. It's like right around 11 o'clock. Maybe I turn this way because I don't want soda just yet. So I go and they're like, yeah, okay, it'll be X amount of dollars. And I'm sitting there for 3 minutes and they come back and they're like, yeah, we're out of that energy drink. I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, so I just wasted time, huh?
Yep.
You guys couldn't tell me that when I first ordered.
Nope.
So I couldn't get a refund. Like they couldn't like easily refund me without like waiting 2 business days. And I'm like, well, I might as well like get some whatever kind of like supermarket sweep, right? You just kind of like pick things
try
to
and
get
match
to your
up
price.
yeah.
And so that's what I ended up doing. But I went in there with all the intention of trying something like new and good, and came out with something that I didn't really want. So I've been there, done that.
Yeah,
plenty of times.
I definitely got what I didn't want. It's like some bagel sandwich something. I literally just went. I wanted because they had the only reason I went there is they have like just the bacon by itself, and I like their hash browns. And so I was like, okay, I'll just get some bacon. And
now, is their hash brown like a Mickey D's hash brown?
No, so it's like the little rounds, like the little hash brown.
Oh, like potato olays.
Yeah, basically
from Taco John's.
And they're really solid. They've got nice seasoning on them. And I was like, okay, I like the hash browns. I'll get like an order of hash browns and a couple orders of bacon. Because I've sat here when we would do like breakfast blitz and stuff and just chow out on bacon, right? So I was like, okay, that's about the only fast food place I know of that just sells bacon, like as a individual item. So I was like, okay, let's get a little bacon. So I was excited about it. There's no bacon to be found. There were hash browns. Which
I think there is bacon on there, wasn't there?
Not by itself. It's like,
well, yeah, it's mixed into everything.
It is.
There's some bacon.
There is a little bit of bacon on whatever that bagel monstrosity is. I'm having a tough morning.
That's like
guys.
when, again, I think I brought this up the other day. When you don't study for a test and then you realize the essay question is like 50% of your grade, like that's what you get out of the non-studying essay question. That's 50% of your grade. You just write something down and you hope that maybe 15 to 20% of it is accurate.
Yeah, like it technically is food and edible, and there is technically bacon involved. It is by no means the correct answer.
Is this a place that you normally go to?
I have before, not before the show. This is the first time I've gone before the show.
Okay.
And it will be the last time I go before the show.
If you're pretty angry. Like I can tell, like you don't like show off that you're like super mad, because I feel like you're pretty controlled.
Yeah.
But just knowing your personality, like this is angry.
I'm irritated.
Yeah,
I'm
like irritated toward angry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I let several of my non-radio safe words out when Shane opened the door for me as I was walking in. So I diffused a little of the tension as I walked in. But no, I don't get angry real often. I will say, and this is a totally this is probably a character flaw of me. When people don't get my order right, I get like irrationally angry. And I know
how often does this happen?
More than it should. It's like the only time, man, when was it? There's a very specific scenario, and my wife's like, this is like the only time that I see you get like actually angry about things.
Were they using the cream cheese, the butter, the bagel?
We'll talk to him today.
Yeah, we are going to talk to Brian Edwards, see if we can make a little money, change my mood a little bit.
Can I give you some advice? And to our listeners too?
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere but the Beanery.
Our great listeners.
Just go to the Beanery.
Just go to the Beanery. No, but when it comes to if you go to a place, an establishment like that, and you frequent it a lot, try to get to know the people, maybe like their first name or something, if especially if they're wearing a name tag, because a person like that could just be having a bad day, and just to say, hey, Susan, I hope your day's going well, it probably means a lot to them, that sort of thing, and they might be able to do a better job getting the correct order to you on the back end.
Shane's only going to fast food restaurants in the 80s, apparently. Susan?
Yeah.
That's my mom's name, Shane.
Also, like, listen, I understand.
I'm aware of that.
I understand people have bad days.
Quiet down.
I understand people have bad days. You still have to do your job. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that probably sounds heartless. But, like, I have bad days at work. I still have to come in and do my job. Like, I don't. Like, is it nice? Like, I'm not mean to fast food workers ever. Like, you just
have high expectations for society. Like
I have very reasonable expectations to get what I ordered.
Well, it's just having high expectations for people. Like, you're in that line of work. You know what you have to do, right? Even if you're one person or 12 people, like you still have to work through any adversity. We talk about that with this football team, right?
Yeah.
Working through adversity.
These are the same people to get a W. These are the same people that want Heinrich Harburg to overcome his interceptions.
Right. It's just one of those moments which, like, you understand the stress and you can empathize with that, but in the same light, there's still a job to do. There's still that's a line of work where you have to be accurate, 100% accurate. You can't be 70%. You have to be closer to 100.
I'm gonna and listen, and I know it's possible because there's places I go that never miss, right? And I should only go those places. I understand that, but like there's places that I go that are just they never ever miss, and so I know it's possible. I know it's doable. It's like when we watch football teams, right? It's like I know it's possible to not be negative turnovers every game. Like I know that's a real thing. I know it's possible not to have procedure penalties every game. I know it's a real thing because I see it happen on Saturdays. I know it's a real thing to be able to get orders right. And listen, I don't think
you've seen it.
Yes, because it happens other establishments. I don't think it's a real high bar.
Are you saying that Nebraska football is your establishment this morning? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying
you've seen it at other places.
Listen, I'm saying at other times, previous years, certainly it was similar to the experience I had this morning where it went wrong to start and it stayed wrong. Like there's one thing if it takes too long and then you get the order right and you're like, okay, like that's maybe the Illinois game where it's, hey, we didn't play real pretty. We kind of flubbed it up at the end a little bit there, but we came out with the W, right? Getting the order right's the W at the end of the road. I need to still come away with the W, even if it's a little ugly along the way, all right? Even if it takes me 20 minutes in the drive-thru, I need to come away with the W.
So this was Minnesota. This wasn't Illinois.
Yeah, this was Minnesota. This was the Minnesota game.
It started as a win, right?
This was Illinois last year.
You drove it in. You're like, wow, you have everything I need. Great. Thanks for my order. And then all of a sudden, it was like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you're still sitting in line. You're still sitting in line. And then, there's a turnover, and boom, you leave. You're almost late, and bam, the order's wrong.
This is Northwestern last year. Like, I don't know what the onside kick is in this equation, but this is Northwestern last year. We did not overcome. We did not have we did not get a W despite the mistakes. This was a debacle.
Well, I'm happy you made it.
I'm
too.
happy
you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
No doubt. No doubt.
You talk about some people have bad days. I'm having a bad day. I'm still going to persevere.
I mean, you could be Connor Stallions, who's having now a bad month.
Connor Stallions. I can't. Every time I sent you a TikTok last night about this dude, because yesterday after the show, we're like, maybe we'll see if there's another Michigan update, whatever. There's always more.
Jokingly. Like that was a complete joke.
And then I see this TikTok yesterday and I send it to you immediately because we've got 6 minutes here. We can get into it. Not only has Connor Stallions bought tickets to 30 games in the Big Ten, he's buying SEC tickets. He's buying Clemson tickets. He's publicly sending money to people on Venmo.
That's what's so
like
funny.
An idiot. This guy was
not
a
even
Marine.
Not even hiding it.
This dude was a Marine. And he knows the value of discretion.
Well, and the best part too is he's sending GA, like general admission.
Yes.
Like he's sending
not even
what the ticket is versus saying like, hey, a pizza icon. Or, hey, a car icon or a house for like whatever rent. Like you could send whatever. No, he's telling people what he's sending the money for.
I used to work for an organization in fraud and risk management that monitored transactions much like this on a different payment platform, okay? But where you like put in the information and whatever and what it's for. I've seen people buy drugs with more discretion than Connor Stallions sending this ticket money. Wow. Like, what are we doing here, Connor? What's happening?
Yeah. And then what was that? What was the other part of that? He published a manifesto.
Yeah. So he kept, oh my gosh. So this dude doesn't even, I've got a private Venmo. I've got it locked down. Like, unless I'm friends with you, you don't get to see what I spend my money on Venmo because I think it's a little weird. Like, I think that's a weird aspect of Venmo.
I don't want anybody knowing where my money's going, whether it's going to rent or whether it's going somewhere else.
Yeah, like I pay my like lawn people that way. I pay my snow removal people I pay a bunch of people through Venmo, and it's just I don't want people knowing what I'm spending money on. That's weird. And so I've got my Venmo private. You like when you're doing stuff, and obviously you're not supposed to be doing this. Like, there's no way he didn't know.
Really, all of Venmo should just be private.
Yeah,
let's be real.
Yeah, it's weird to me.
Why is there even a public setting?
I don't know. It's weird to me.
Like, you really want everybody, like, to see it like your Instagram feed?
I guess, like, some of these, like, younger college kids and stuff do. I don't know. It's weird.
Who scrolls through Venmo, though, and is like, oh, my gosh, Shane Schillerberg just sent money to Dingman's?
I have no idea. It's weird. It's weird to me. But, yeah, so he doesn't have a private Venmo, which, come on, man. And then he's apparently got a 600 page we're talking like a Harry Potter book level, and not one of the early ones.
Maybe longer.
I'm talking about like Order of the Phoenix.
The big thick guys with 2 C's.
Yeah. We're talking about like Order of the Phoenix. We're talking like those middle giant books. We're talking like a Tolkien book here of Manifesto. And he calls it a manifesto. That's not me.
Yep.
That's him calling it a
how
manifesto.
Many manifestos
have ever been positive?
Not just positive, but just like really worked for the greater good.
Yeah, like how many like really well-adjusted people write manifestos? That's what I want to know. I don't know a lot of like totally hinged people that are like, yeah, time to write my manifesto. And apparently it's 600 pages on how to take over the Michigan football program, which like
that thing wet.
Can you imagine how long that took him to write?
He apparently
600
updates
pages.
it every day. Every single day. So I don't know if he's just like got more ideas on like how to take down Jim Harbaugh, or I don't know if he's trying to help Jim Harbaugh. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I'm not reading it. I'll tell you that.
No, I'm certainly not. And I don't think Jim Harbaugh is reading it either, although he might have time.
But wasn't it a Google Doc too?
Yeah.
So it's like, I
wonder if he like shared it with somebody.
Yeah, but it's on like another place where you share things and it can easily be tracked.
I know. This man is not a genius. Like, I don't love it for him. But so that's the Michigan update. There's a manifesto, apparently. Totally super normal thing to do is write a 600-page manifesto.
That's Wolverines.
Yeah. Especially when he was a volunteer until about a year ago. So that's totally normal.
Yeah, you know, as I kept reading this story more and more, though, it almost seemed like this is like the first time this incident has really happened, because the NCAA just doesn't really know how to like handle it.
You mean you don't have low-level staffers often writing 600-page manifestos?
I think I meant more the video recording of signs in games, but yes, that too.
Just the guy with the cell phone out for the entire game, which we were kind of joking about, and that's the actual report now.
I know. It's so weird. Can you imagine
he was
just
filming
doing this?
Yeah. Like, have you ever seen one of those bootleg movies where it's like shaky and the guy, like that's what I'm imagining is like somebody filming the Blair Witch
like,
Project.
Is he holding up a hot dog or what's he doing there, Connor?
Oh my gosh!
Hold on. Let me pause the video really fast. All right, we're gonna send this
and the
through,
Zoom capabilities. I mean, like I know phones are good now, but you're all the way across the field. Like that's a challenge here. That's you're talking about a pretty long way.
I'll tell you what though, like if I zoomed all the way in and I could I could focus in on this TV up here.
Can you get the 7-string guitar in frame that you love so much?
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Heck yeah.
But so what? The width of the field is like 53-ish
Yeah,
yards.
but so he's following it. Like he's literally following play, making it overly obvious when you're recording a sideline.
Yes. Yeah.
That you're recording a sideline.
Absolutely. And so you go, so you've got the width of the field plus the sideline plus however far up you are in the stands. I mean, you're probably looking at a good 100, 150 yards that you're zooming in there.
Like I said, the space thing is what just baffles me. How do you have that much space on your phone? Even if you have the deepest form of iCloud.
Yeah.
How do you have that space? It just goes back though, man. Putting this inside the helmet. Let me just do this. It happens in high school. It happens in the NFL. How about we just catch up, NCAA?
The NCAA doesn't like to catch up.
Nope, they like mustard.
I was just going to make that exact joke. Yeah, that means it was a terrible joke.
Thanks. Great. All right.
You know what?
You showed up late. I'm leaving early.
We got more coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
To the mid, right circle Mueller, cross strength Gavin. LeMay open one-timer off a stick. Yo, Kim LeMay. It's a power play to the mid.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We are
repping the Blues today. They are not a good hockey team.
Well, listen, it happens to the best of us. My Red Sox weren't good this year. My 49ers are struggling. Apparently, Sam Darnold's going to be the quarterback this week. I don't know how I feel about it yet. We're still working through some feelings here. A lot of big feelings today on the show for me.
Are you a big feeling guy? I know you were probably about to do an ad read, and I apologize for
you're
stepping
fine.
over you.
You're fine.
Are you a big feelings guy when it comes to seeing Dusty Baker retire?
Are you feeling good? Not really. It's obviously he's had an incredible career in baseball, right? I mean, he's been in the sport for 6 decades at this point. No, I think that's real. Like between playing and coach.
Well, he played for the Dodgers in the 70s.
Was it just 50 years? Yeah. I thought it might be a little longer than that. I thought he might have been 60s. But so he's, I always kind of feel for these baseball lifers, right? Tito Francona just retired.
Mm-hmm.
That one had a lot more for me because he was the Red Sox manager in 2004. I don't have a ton of feelings about Dusty Baker. I honestly, the thing I think of the most with him is how he maybe kind of not. I don't hold him solely responsible, but feels like he maybe sort of derailed the careers of Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor in 2000, like in the early 2000s with the Cubs, just overusing those guys and
well, he really got known as a manager when he was with the Reds.
Yeah,
that was like when Dusty Baker's name was like, hey, he's actually pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good at this. And he kind of, because that was after the Cubs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he kind of redeemed himself a little bit with Cincinnati because he did get beat up a little bit for the way he handled those guys in the early 2000s with the Cubs. And listen, I'm not a Cubs fan, so I don't really have any animosity towards him. I did have like a weird affinity for Mark Pryor back in the day, so I was a little bummed about that. But I think mostly because I had seen him in the College World Series with USC, and I just really liked him. But yeah, I always kind of feel for these baseball lifers because I also wonder, and this is probably way more existential than you were intending me to get, but I always wonder about these guys that have done the same thing for their whole life, like what they do when they stop doing that thing. Yeah. Like it just honestly, worry is probably too strong of a word, but it does.
But there is a worry there.
Yeah,
because
there's something I think about it because like
you talk about like depression.
Yeah, it's an identity crisis, right? You've been the same thing for your entire life. I mean, I know people that have had a hard time, and reasonably so. I'm not disparaging it at all. Where like they're done with their high school career and they have a really hard time adjusting to not being an athlete anymore. Or, with me, I was an average amateur power lifter, and when I had to stop, like that was hard for me.
Yeah,
that was a kind of a transition of, hey, a lot of my life has been devoted to this, and now I have to stop doing it and move on and kind of figure some things out. And so, like, I get it; it's hard. So that you amplify that times a million for a guy like Dusty Baker, who's been in baseball his entire life. And I do worry a little bit about like, man, I hope. I hope he's got like a support system and things like that to just be, able.
Guy in his position does.
You would hope so,
and
right?
You know what? And even in today's age, like we see it with T.O. here in Nebraska, like there will be ways for him to stay around the game
if he wants to.
And he just won't. He'll just do it on a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
So he'll just show up to any of. Would be happy to have Dusty Baker just show up at their practice or at BP or whatever.
Probably ends up being one of those like spring training instructors. You see a lot of retired ball players do that where, they're an instructor in the fall league, or they're a BP instructor, or they're going to the spring training down in Florida and hanging out or whatever. So I'm sure he'll stay involved with the game if he wants to. He probably has, he'll probably have like TV opportunities if he wants them. But I do always just kind of wonder about people. I feel I have I guess kind of an empathy for people in transition in their lives because those can be hard times.
Growing up, did anybody else out there think James Earl Jones in The Sandlot was Dusty Baker? Because I did. I always thought that was Dusty Baker starring in that movie as a kid because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's the Reds manager every single time. Nope. Turned out to be a totally different person.
They do kind of have this is a weird thing. Because they don't really look much alike, but they have kind of a similar like posture, like almost like a hunch a little bit.
Well, and
you know what I mean?
I envision Dusty Baker when he's talking to his pitcher on the mound or the umpire sounding like James Earl Jones. Why didn't you just knock on the door? I could have gotten it for you. I just imagine Dusty Baker and James Earl Jones just being pals, being one and the same.
Yeah, I could see that. They probably have similar
like
vibes.
when they stand, like when Dusty Baker would stand in the dugout, even like this year with the Houston Astros, and they would just pan to him. He's not doing anything. He's just leaning against that little padding.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You could have convinced me it was James Earl Jones.
To this day, just still. Hey, there's Darth Vader in the dugout. Oh, you love to see it. So let's see. What did we want to get to here? I don't even remember. We do want to get to a little bit of NBA. There was the NBA regular season kicked off last.
Is Wembanyama better than people were giving him credit for?
Ooh, I don't know.
Not when I say people, I don't mean like the national view.
Sure.
I mean when he came into the league, like when he came into the draft, he was like being compared already to like the next big, like the greats, He's going to be the next big thing, right?
As a prospect, he is as good as we've seen since LeBron.
Correct.
As a prospect.
And then he gets drafted. Mm-hmm. He comes into camp, and then people were like, is he as good as we gave him credit for? And now he's in the league. He showed out in his opener. Mm-hmm. And I almost think like he's above where people were like resting before the season. Like that is when I asked that question. Is he better than people were giving him credit for coming into the season?
Maybe. So with a guy like Wembanyama, it's going to be really interesting because he's going to have moments where he does things that you cannot believe are done on a basketball court. And I think mostly that's going to be on the defensive end because I don't think it's going to take people a really long time to adjust how far away he has to be to not be able to block a shot. I mean, I think it happened on the first possession of the Spurs game last night. One of the Dallas players goes up for a jumper and clearly thought that Wembanyama was not close enough. And he's just like, boop, that's mine now. And takes it and they go off the other way. The distance he covers because of his length is...
And he can get up there. It's not even just like, hey, I'm 7'3" and I just put my arms in the air and now I'm 8 foot. Right?
No, he's like also athletic.
I can also jump 2 feet in the air and now I'm as tall as the basketball hoop.
Yeah, he's super unique for a guy that size and that he can actually move too. All the guys that we've seen that are 7'3", 7'4", and bigger, basically anybody over like 7'2", hasn't really been able to move that well. Even Porzingis doesn't move like Wembanyama.
Although he played very well.
He did, yeah. And when he's healthy, he's still really good. But even before he got any of the injuries, he didn't move like Wembanyama, and Wembanyama's still bigger than he is. That's the thing that I think people are really going to have to adjust to is just his length and athleticism on the perimeter. I don't think people really were expecting that. So he's going to have flashes where he looks incredible and does things that we don't even know how to put into context. And there's going to be moments where he struggles because he is, I think, like 19.
So he's just raw.
Yeah, he's young. I mean, and
he's got to stay out of foul trouble.
Yes, which is going to be a challenge. He's going to have a lot of the same adjustments that a lot of 19-year-olds have coming into the league, but he's going to have these moments of brilliance where you don't even know what to do with it.
Like when he dribbled the ball through an opponent's legs.
Yeah, when he just like nutmegs some dude on a fast break.
You mentioned Kristaps Porzingis, and I know we're winding down in this segment, but at one point in that game, Kristaps is at the line. I think there's about like 4 minutes left. Boston's down maybe 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. And it was, you know what? It was the moment when they were actually down 2 and Porzingis was getting like swarmed underneath the hoop. And he did the little like elbow thing and he knocked what's his face in the mouth.
Yeah.
Went to the ground.
on the
I don't even know if he actually hit him.
Yeah.
It seemed pretty floppish to me. And, I don't know how. I was kind of with Doris Burke in that moment. She's like, what's he supposed to do? He's like trying to get him to release.
Yeah.
Like, release, get away from me.
Yeah.
The whistle blew. But Porzingis goes to the line because he was fouled first before the bow. And I hear the crowd saying F Porzingis. And I'm like, I don't know if I've ever done that to somebody that was on my team. Like that was once a guy that we loved. I know he didn't pan out the way the Knicks wanted him to pan out.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Knicks fans are a little different.
Yeah, they're a little salty, and I get that. But if my guy returned home, it would be a stand like the Cardinals. If they had somebody come back, like when Pools came back, he left. It was not, and it wasn't great.
And he left willingly. Porzingis got traded.
Yeah, it wasn't great when Pools left. People were kind of mad about it because they gave him a contract that seemed pretty reasonable, and he's like, no, I'm just going to go make some money. He comes back 2 years later in a Dodgers uniform, Angels uniform, excuse me, and people give him a standing O. Like, where was the divide there with Porzingis? That kind of
that was odd.
Put me in a rut.
Nolan Sullivan, Omaha Hockey, coming up next.
We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
To the mid, right circle Mueller, cross street Gavin. LeMay open one-timer off his net. LeMay at the power play. Oh, Kim LeMay.
We will be back.
Up a stick. Yo, Kim LeMay.
We will be back.
Right circle Mueller.
We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We are wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We are brought to you by our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. Dingman's has 4 great area locations, and they can help you out no matter what make and model you're driving, because they invest in the latest technology to make sure they are up to date. And that's part of the reason they've been voted first place Best of Omaha for 18 years running. Family owned and family run local business. And because they're local, because they care about the community, they give back for every car repaired. You can go to dingmans.com to find out more about their services or to find out more about their give back program. That's Dingman's Collision Center. We are efforting Nolan Sullivan from UNO Hockey, trying to get him on the line for us to preview the top 20 matchup between the Mavs and Ohio State. The Buckeyes coming into town this weekend, starting tomorrow at 7:07 p.m.
That is right.
The puck drops. You've got that same 7:07 start time on Saturday as well, which means you can watch the Nebraska game because that's a 2:30 kick.
Sure can.
You can listen to the post-game spread, and then you can go and hang out with the Mavs and Buckeyes at Baxter Arena.
And me. You'll see me.
And
venue.
Andrew Rogers, the MC.
Make some noise.
The original MC. That's why he runs our games, because he's a professional at that. We appreciate always hanging out with AR, whether it's here or whether it's down at Baxter Arena. So really exciting matchup. As we mentioned earlier, we gave tickets away to Trent yesterday. So
he'll be present on Friday's game.
He's going to get a go
at Friday's game
as well. I'm going to try and make it out Saturday. It's a busy weekend, right? Because I'd go tomorrow. We got high school football tomorrow, first round of the playoffs. So probably want to get out to some of those. And then Saturday, just got to see how the college football day takes me, right? Because after we do post game and everything, just got to see where we're at. But I'm gonna try and make it out because this is a big one. I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. Also excited to talk to Nolan Sullivan. He joins us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Nolan, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Sully, how does it feel to have this team back in the top 20 so early in your final season?
It seems like we didn't earn it yet, Andrew. We got the weekend off and slipped right in there, so we're excited to just play again.
Nolan, how do you feel kind of coming off of the 2 wins 2 weeks ago now to open the season against Niagara, and then you kind of have this break before you get into Ohio State? Like, do you like having that break, or you just want to get after it?
In a perfect world, I think you just get after it and keep playing, but I think it was a good time for us to regroup after that Niagara series. And even though we got 2 wins, there's still a lot to work on. And I think the group's ready to go here heading into Ohio State now.
Sully, what impressed you the most in that matchup against Niagara? Would you say it was the team's ability to score and score often, or the net-minding play by not just Simon, but Seth too?
Yeah, I think you spoke to it a bit there, but I think just the depth of the team as a whole. I think what excited me was I think it was 8 different guys that scored on that Friday. So not only were goals going in, but, to have 8 different guys step up was huge. And, yeah, obviously the goaltending both nice, but specifically even that Saturday night and being able to stick it out in a 2-1 win in Seth's first game was awesome to see. And Simon played amazing as well. So fun just to see the depth of the team so far.
Nolan, you mentioned some of the things, obviously you have an 8-1 and a 2-1 victory over Niagara. But you still say, hey, we've got some things to work on. What are some of those things you were trying to improve in that week off?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of structure things. It's hard to pinpoint one specific area, but I know our team is going to be playing our best hockey when we're skating fast and thinking second. And so I think the more we can just get the new guys comfortable with the systems and get used to just playing free out there, it's going to free up a lot of mind space to not think as much and just to act quicker.
Sully, let's talk about this upcoming series. Not only the biggest so far, but arguably one of the biggest on this team's schedule. They're not just a football school. Ohio State ranked 16th in the country currently. I doubt Buckeye hockey has a Connor Stallions listening to the show, so I'm comfortable asking this question. What has been the game plan all week going into this series?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to our structure. I know they're a good offensive team, so I think taking care of our D zone first is going to be huge. A big thing we've emphasized is taking care of the puck. It's a team you're not going to want to get into a track race with. So I think our plan is just to play hard, make it a long night for them, and force them to go the full 60 minutes to beat us.
We're talking with Nolan Sullivan from Omaha Hockey. Nolan, I'm looking at your schedule here, and you go, all right, you go top 20 matchup against Ohio State. Then you go top 20 matchup with Western Michigan. Then you've got a little bit later in the month, you've got, number 2 team currently in the country in Denver. And then a little bit after that, you got number 11 in Minnesota, Duluth. I guess, how do you view a schedule like this where obviously pretty much week after week you're playing one of the best hockey teams in the country?
Personally, I love it. I think it's great for the team. I think to have some of those conference games mixed in early is great too. I know my last few years it's been quite a bit different as far as just taking care of most of your out of conference games first, but I love that we have top teams coming into to play us. I love that we get to go on the road and play in some tough environments. And I think overall, just for that pairwise algorithm, I'd rather have that tougher schedule. I think it just plays into our favor. And I think our team's just going to continue to take those steps and really identify ourselves as the top team in the country as well.
Do you think the Mavs like being the team that always plays, with a target on their back? Because it's the Mavericks are just always underestimated, at least over the course of the past few years and maybe even your time at the school. It seems as though Omaha doesn't get the credit that they deserve early on, and then they prove throughout the season why they should have been maybe pre-ranked third in the conference.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you have to continue to solidify who you are as a team, and that's something we've really emphasized, and you hear us talk a lot in different meetings. It's just what's that identity, what's that culture going to be like? Because once you establish it, I think it's hard for it to go away. And I know coming in as a freshman, the previous season they had, I think, 9 wins, and so our goal was more or less hey, can we even get to 500? Like that's kind of the standard. And I think to see freshman year that was the standard, and to see where it's at now is, hey, we're battling. We want to be a Penrose contender and win the conference. We obviously want to get to St. Paul. We want to be in the playoff and have a shot to go play for a national championship. There's a lot of new higher arching goals. And to me, the more we just set that as the standard and more we prove that each and every year, I think there's just still some unfinished business from last year. And, that's on us to own it. But yes, I think we do use that as a chip on our back to continue to go out and prove people wrong each year.
Nolan, with those aspirations of being able to compete for a national championship, how does playing such a tough schedule and being in such a tough conference like the NCHC prepare you for that?
I think it prepares us a ton. Yeah, there's nothing that's going to surprise you come playoffs if you get used to playing those tough games. And the reality is each weekend can be tough. You come off the Niagara series where, like we talked about, you have a huge 8-1 win on Friday, and then you have a 2-1 dogfight. So it's hard to sweep any team in this league, and to get to go against the best of the best, it only proves who you are, proves how hard it is to win in college hockey and win back-to-back nights. But as far as preparing for the playoff push, that's exactly what you're looking for as a team. And I think our guys are ready for the challenge.
Sully, what's Dom Vidoli's energy been like all week, seeing as this is his former team, and how bad do you guys want to win this series for him?
Yeah, no, he's been fired up. Unfortunately, he's going through a little injury protocol right now, so I'm not sure what his availability will be for the weekend. But yes, 100%. He's been giving us some insights, and I know we have a few players from the Big Ten as well that transferred in, so it's been good just to get their insight on how Ohio State plays, some of their strategy, and what to look for this weekend.
All right, Nolan, we're gonna get a little personal here. I want to know, and don't worry, none of your teammates are listening, so you can tell me the truth here. If things get a little chippy in a hockey game, what teammate do you want to have your back?
I think after last weekend, I'd go with Ty Rollwagon.
Wouldn't be a bad one.
Yeah, there's no hesitation there. He was right on it and answered the call. So it's fun to see. Obviously college hockey, you can't fight, you can't do all these things, but at a certain point, it's good to see guys back each other up as well. We just talked about the difference too. It's an 8-1 game. Somebody takes a cheap shot. It's like, okay, you can go, stick out for them. But if it's a 2-1 game and somebody takes a cheap shot, you're better off leaving that guy and just taking the penalty, taking the power play. So it's a tricky thing, I think, in college hockey.
Sully, quickly, one more thing. I've been calling you Sully this whole interview. That's your nickname. We had Victor on last week. His nickname's Moose. Is it a thing for hockey players to all have nicknames? And who has the best nickname on the team?
Yeah, no, I think everybody definitely has a nickname. I know there was a few guys I've played with in the past who probably didn't even know my name was Nolan. I think, yeah, just assumed Sully was my actual name. So, you know what? I'm a personal fan of Mulehouse, Tyler Mueller. But, yeah, there's a lot to go around.
That is Nolan Sullivan from Omaha Hockey. Nolan, good luck this weekend against Ohio State.
Appreciate you, Sully.
Thank you.
That is Nolan Sullivan. He plays for Mavericks hockey.
He's they only call me Sully.
Make sure you get on out to Baxter Arena this weekend as they face off against Ohio State. Coming up next, we'll have Mitch Sherman from The Athletic.
His best friend's Mike Wazowski.
We will be back.
The deep back. Wide receivers left and right. Turn.
We will be
Shot
back.
downfield, wide open. Malachi Coleman. It's Johnson. It's Harper. Beg your pardon, he's in. Touchdown. Deny run Bonner. Deny.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Deny run Bonner. Fullback in, but Harper, he's taking a shot. Downfield, wide open end zone. Caught, touchdown. It's Malachi Coleman. It's Johnson. It's Harper. Beg your pardon, he's in. Touchdown.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, kicking off hour number 2. We will be talking with Mitch Sherman here shortly. But as we wait, I want to tell you about our friends at the Warhorse Sportsbook. They are
Sometimes they're friends to me.
Well, they're always friends to us. Sometimes they're friends to your bets, and sometimes, sometimes you owe a little bit of money. That's the nature of gambling.
I don't know anything. I put everything up front.
The Warhorse,
they just keep it.
Well, yeah, sometimes they keep it. Sometimes they give it back with more. Sometimes they keep it. The Warhorse Sportsbook is the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Got to be in person at the casino to place those. They got plenty of kiosk and sportsbook tellers. You can build your bets on the app, go to the casino, scan your QR code,
which is really easy.
And man, just bing, bang, boom, you get your bets in just like that. You can bet on pretty much every major sporting event. They've got straight bets, parlays, props, live in-game bets, which are kind of my personal favorite. Love an in-game bet. You can go to warhorsecasino.com to find out more. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. Joining us now via that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline is Mitch Sherman. Mitch, how are you this morning?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Good, Mitch. Good to hear you.
We are doing well. I was having this thought last night as I'm kind of preparing to talk to you this morning, and so you work for The Athletic, obviously, which was purchased by the New York Times. Do you ever think it's weird that the New York Times is a Nebraska football beat writer?
No, it's not weird at all.
I was just thinking about that. I was like, technically, Mitch is a Nebraska football writer for the New York Times. It's a little strange to think about in that context.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got separate newsrooms and all kinds of joints and separate operations, but no, I think it's great. In fact,
no, it's terrific, and obviously we love the work that everybody does over there at The Athletic. So coming off of the Northwestern game, I was a little surprised the last couple of weeks with Illinois and Northwestern, sort of the fan reaction. And I know, fans can be irrational. I can be too. I get it. But I guess the way that fans have reacted, especially to the offense, considering everything that's going on, has that taken you by surprise at all?
Not really this latest chapter. I kind of felt that way early in the season with the reaction to some of the games, whether it was the way that Nebraska lost at Minnesota or the reaction maybe to ugly wins in the non-conference season against Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech. But, I think it's important not to base your entire feelings about the way that the Nebraska fan base is reacting because of what you see on social media. I do think in just talking to people and I gauge my kind of the temperature of the Nebraska fans probably as much or more from human interaction than I do from just looking on Twitter. But it very much is a situation like it is with the players and like Matt Rule has come to not just recognize but embrace. It's a situation with the fans and the players where you're kind of living in this new world of Nebraska football, but all of the context and everything that's happened over the past, for the fans, it might be 10, 20, 30 years. For the players, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 years. All of that is rolled up into one. And I think when you look at it that way, it does explain why the fans react the way that they do to some things. I think what's important right now is to recognize that Nebraska's won 4 of its last 5 games, and it's got all kinds of issues, on both sides of the ball with injuries, but of course the offensive side has been hit a lot worse. And the fact that they can kind of continue to push and make progress, even when it doesn't look like the kind of progress you want to see as a fan or a player, and understand that the coaches, they want Nebraska to score more than 17 points in a win against Northwestern too. I mean, to me, it when it all comes out in the wash, things are going pretty well right now over the last 5 games. But there's always people who are going to want to, pick at the, the things they don't like, and that's fine. That's just how the world works.
Mitch, speaking of the offense and embracing the change and the turnover, what position group completely beat up do you think has the best chance of not skipping a beat when it comes to the overall gameplay?
Well, I mean, so you're asking about the offensive line and you're asking about the wide receivers.
Correct.
And those are the two that have taken the biggest hits. I mean, earlier in the year, it was definitely the running backs. And I think we know where they're at. And it's Emmett Johnson. You still have Anthony Grant, but he's got to hold on to the football. And we understand that that's a non-negotiable with Matt Rule and his offensive staff. But between the other two position groups, I think the offensive line has a better chance to keep it going. And they've been doing an okay job. I mean, they take a lot of heat, and I think last year it was more deserving than it is this year. I mean, Nebraska's leading the Big Ten in rushing, not just rushing yards per game, but rushing yards per attempt. So that's not something to take for granted. And I get that they're doing that at the expense of having a productive and efficient passing game, and it just hasn't been there for Nebraska through the air. That's in part because of those injuries at wide receiver and because of what Nebraska's going through at quarterback with a new starter, inexperienced starter. But I think the line's got a chance to kind of keep this going, at least what they've done to this point, which is I'd say be a middle of the road Big Ten offensive line. That's not too bad. That's pretty good in the national scope. The guys who are coming in to fill in for the injured starters over these next couple games, and in the case of two of them for the rest of the season, they are also experienced. They're not experienced on the same level as Corcoran, Piper, and Newely, but they've all played. And Teddy Prohaska started. Henry Lutovsky started a little bit. Justin Evans-Jenkins is one of the guys that the coaches are highest on among young players on the offensive side of the ball. So I think there's an opportunity there for these guys to play well and for Nebraska fans to be impressed with what they're doing. The big issue and the big concern is that they're just out of depth now. And those guys were the depth, and now they're the frontline players. So if there's any more of what we saw last Saturday, then they're going to be playing freshmen, and that's when I think you would see a drop off.
Mitch, as we go kind of look through this schedule, obviously you're kind of weighing the state of the team versus the teams that they have coming up on the schedule. As you kind of look at this, what's the most realistic version of how this plays out for Nebraska on the way out here?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can look at it and you can say there isn't a great team left on the schedule. So, hey, why not go 5-0? And then, obviously you're looking at an incredible season record-wise. I don't think that's realistic. That's not the most realistic view of this, because Nebraska also is not a great team.
Sure.
They're a very middle of the road team. I think even within the Big Ten West, they're very much a middle of the road team. And all of these teams, as we've heard the coaches say, as we've heard, I think the players understand this, fans understand this. All of these teams that are left, all five of them, could beat Nebraska on any old Saturday. And there's a scenario where Nebraska could beat any of these teams on a specific game, in a specific situation. Now, it's going to be tough. They're not going to be a favorite going to Wisconsin. I don't think they're going to be a favorite at home against Maryland. Unless the Terps just totally fall apart under the weight of the Big Ten East and what they have to go through there. But realistic to me is getting to 6 wins, maybe even having a shot at 7, which a few weeks ago didn't necessarily seem like the most likely scenario. It didn't seem realistic. I wouldn't say that felt realistic when Nebraska was 0-2, but they've righted some things, and I think they've learned a lot about themselves, and these coaches have learned a lot about how to push their buttons, and they're comfortable right now in the way that this team is being coached, in the way that they're performing, and how they're getting to have chances to win games. They feel good about kind of the process. So you put all that together, and they're at 4 wins right now. I think it's realistic to say they'll have a chance to get 3 more.
Mitch, one quote that stuck out to me most from Coach Rule earlier this week was when he was talking about the effort chasing down guys after Northwestern made big plays. What was probably 6 early in the year was 1st and goal or 1st and 10 in the red zone and resulted in a field goal. How impressed are you in that aspect of the defense this year? Not only not giving up on plays, but making the big tackle and avoiding detrimental gains. And you can even insert Isaac Gifford here in the open field as a part of this pool too.
For sure. Yeah, I wrote about that yesterday, about winning ugly and the art of winning ugly, and how the defense, those two plays you're talking about with Omar Brown and Malcolm Hartzog chasing guys down. And not only did they chase players down where they could have given up, they could have just kind of raised their hands in disgust, and it would have been a couple of touchdowns for Northwestern. Not only did they catch those guys and make the tackles and give the defense another opportunity, but then they stayed out there and contributed to the defense stiffening up. And both of those drives ended in field goals. So like Luke Reimer pointed out on Tuesday when he talked to the media, that's 8 points that they saved, 4 on each one of those drives. And you see the final score, and Nebraska won by 8 points. So those are winning plays. And that's the formula that Matt Rule is looking for. Same thing with Gifford. His play forces a punt. It ends a drive early in the second half, where Northwestern, if it's not a touchdown on that play, if the guy gets past Gifford, or if the blockers make their blocks and he doesn't fight through and stop that running back on the screen pass, if it's not a touchdown, it puts Northwestern in position to get more points. So all of those plays, they save points, they're winning plays. It's interesting to look at it and say that 2 of the most important plays in that game for Nebraska came on the biggest gains of the game for Northwestern. They're 2 explosive plays. It was a gain of 66 on the pass play that Hartzog chased down, and a run for a gain of 39 on the play with that Omar Brown chase down. So those to me are things that winning teams do, and teams that we've too often seen at Nebraska in recent years, plays that they don't make. Not saying that the defensive players in the past would give up on those plays. Maybe it just had more to do with how well the defense was equipped to be able to run something like that down. I think they've got guys in better positions right now to recover and make plays on those, make a positive out of a negative than they have in previous seasons.
We're talking with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, you talked about kind of the value of winning ugly, and I guess as I look around the Big Ten West, you see a lot of teams that win ugly, and I think the assumption is at some point, if you're Nebraska, you go from winning ugly to winning pretty, but if you look around the Big Ten West, that's not a transition that a lot of those teams have made. How much do you think that actually does translate if you continue to progress from what we're seeing now for Nebraska to what we hope to see in future years?
Yeah, I think the plan, the blueprint for Matt Rule and this system is to progress offensively to a point where you don't have to win games like this. And some of it's going to be necessitated by what's coming in the Big Ten. When this league expands next year and it's 18 teams, and you don't have divisional play, there's not going to be this same kind of rhythm within the schedule that you see develop in a year like this with the Big Ten West programs. There won't be an opportunity for Iowa, or Nebraska, Minnesota, these Big Ten West schools. I don't need to list them all. There won't be this opportunity for these teams to put together the kind of seasons that they have become accustomed to being able to put together by just rolling off ugly victories against one another. You're going to be mixing in a game against Oregon or a game against USC right in the middle of this stuff. And you're either going to have to adapt or you're going to get left behind. So I think that bodes well for Nebraska, because this isn't the end product. You may say this is the way that Minnesota, this is the way that Iowa has chosen to play football, and it's worked for them because it continues to get them to 8-9 wins a year and get them to bowl games. Well, I think that changes when the Big Ten changes, and it starts next year. So it's fortunate, for Nebraska that this is not the end product, that they have a vision for this offense that looks a lot different than what we see right now. And I think that starts next year, and the discussion begins right now about what to do at quarterback. I recognize they have 5 games left, and it's Heinrich Harburg's, it's his ship to captain right now. but I can guarantee you there's conversations going on behind the scenes, and there's thought being given to how this offense is going to take it to the next level, because they want there to be a next level. At Iowa, I don't know what they want. I don't know if they just want to continue to grind in the same way that they are right now. At Nebraska, I know that they want to take it to another level, and that, they're recruiting speed at the receiver positions. They value that as much as speed and athleticism more than anything. So they need a quarterback, whether that's Heinrich Harburg or somebody who comes through the transfer portal, who can get the ball downfield to those guys to make plays. That's the vision that they have. I think will lead to a style of football that doesn't look quite as ugly as what we see right now.
Mitch, we know this staff is very good at communicating what they want and their message. And I would venture to say that probably about, and maybe I'm shooting too high here, or maybe I'm right on the nose, maybe 80% of people were bought into Coach Rule right away because of just his message that he was proclaiming in the offseason. But then there were those 20% that were a little bit skeptical still, like, hey, like I don't want to just buy into something where he could just be blowing smoke in that situation. I was talking to somebody earlier this week, a fan that said, hey, like, what do you guys think about in terms of the transparency of this coaching staff? Because I really like that. And I sat back and I said, yeah, that's kind of what we've been talking about. But then I also never really thought about that other end of the spectrum of those that may not be all the way caught up just yet. But my question to you is, because Nebraska is winning, do you think those fans are getting closer to caught up, and that number from 80% bought in from the fan base is closer to 100?
Yeah, I mean, I think when they get to a place where you see them going to bowl games, or playing at the end of the season with an opportunity to win a conference championship, then they'll get closer to. They'll never be 100%. I mean, that's just the way it is. But then they'll get above. If it's 80% or if it's 70%, whatever that was bought in initially, they'll rise above that. It maybe added a few percentage points to it, but. I don't think it's a dramatic rise, because I think people who were skeptical of Matt Rule from the beginning, are probably in the crowd right now that's saying, yeah, look at the teams that they've beaten. And it's a valid point. They haven't beaten a great team. They haven't necessarily beaten a good team to this point. And, look at the way they're doing it offensively. How's that going to work against a winning team, against a bowl team? How's that going to work when you want to compete for a conference championship? So, there's reason certainly to be skeptical, and I understand, and I'm not even disagreeing with the people who say, yeah, he's a good talker, and he talks a big game. He can motivate his players, but Nebraska fans have been burned by that kind of stuff for 20 years. There's people maybe who believed in Bill Callahan or believed in Mike Riley, or even in guys like Pelini and Frost, who were more known to the fan base, that they were all in and they bought in at the beginning, only to, feel, betrayed later on when things weren't working out. So, you tricked me once, okay, but now you're working on like the fifth time. So I recognize that there's a lot of people out there who need to see more than just 4 wins in 7 games before they're all in on Matt Rule.
Mitch, Rule talked a little bit earlier in the week, and you kind of referenced it earlier as well, about the some of the freshmen that are going to be playing pretty soon here, especially the guys coming off of red shirts, or not coming off red shirts, that are redshirting this season and can play their 4 games. I guess, how much of an impact do you expect those types of guys to have moving forward? Obviously, you got one more game before they can come in and not lose their red shirt.
Yeah, some of these guys have played in a couple games already, or one game. I mean, in the case of like Jaden Doss, who's the primary fill-in for Billy Kemp while he's down, Jaden's played in 2 games. So they face a real decision there with 5 left, depending on how much time Billy Kemp misses. Like, do you play Jaden Doss this week? I think he probably will play this week. I mean, he's your number 1 slot receiver, so he's definitely playing this week. I mean, I just talked myself into it right there. But, like Rule said, he's not concerned about burning the red shirts of guys if they're playing 50 snaps a game. What he doesn't want to do is play guys for 6, 8, 10 snaps a game and then go over that 4-game threshold. So when you're looking at the young offensive linemen like Sam Sledge and Gunnar Gatula, those are the two true freshmen at the top of the list. Tyler Knack is a redshirt freshman who transferred in, is also in that category. Those guys are going to be needed, I think, in like special teams situations. You don't send out your entire starting offensive line to block for extra points and field goals. You need to give those guys a rest and play some backups in that time. Well, your backups are redshirting. So I think there's enough, as long as they don't have more injuries, there's enough of those freshmen where you can mix and match, and each of them can play in 4 games and still keep those red shirts while they help Nebraska. At the receiver spots, they're kind of in a spot with the 3 who are playing where they're going to play. And, Malachi Coleman and Jalen Lloyd they're definitely not redshirting. Quentin Ives is another guy at running back. He got his first reps against Northwestern. But I think they're going to try to keep him at 4 games. So of the 5 games left, he's got 3 where he can play. Now, if Emmett Johnson goes down with an injury, or if Anthony Grant or Joshua Fleeks is unable to go, then you might be looking at a different situation with Ives. But right now, he's in that category of guys who will be limited to 4 games.
Rule said 50. You don't want him to play 6, but say you met somewhere in the middle there, Mitch, with like 25. You'd have to think that any and all players would want to forego their so-called first season if this team's playing in a bowl game, right? Like if this team is in position to be playing in an impactful game.
Yeah, if you can help the team win and you can help the team get over a major hurdle, hit a milestone like that, and it would be a big milestone for Nebraska just to get to 6 wins because of how the last 6 years have gone, then, I think, for every freshman, it's going to be a different situation. But if you're a freshman, let's say you're one of those receivers, Doss would be the one in that category who's played in 4 games, and all of a sudden they need you against Iowa. It's his call, and, he knows how that works. And I think it would be a conversation that he'd have to have with the coaches, like in the week leading up to the game. You don't want to put a guy in a position where you got to make that call in the moment. Like if the defense is coming off the field and they're like, all right, we need you. You don't want to put a guy in that position where he's got to decide in that moment, the last game of the year, whether he goes in. Those are things that have to be discussed in the days and weeks leading up to that game. So I think the coaches, as they get into November, will start to have some of those conversations with just a select few number. There's only a couple guys in that spot where they still don't know if they're going to be on one side of the fence or the other when it comes to a red shirt.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Good to talk to you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Mitch.
That's our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Really good stuff there.
One of the best.
Mitch, as always.
Did you ever listen to those press conferences too and hear Mitch ask a question and think, gosh, he's so smart?
Yeah, I do try, and because you can't always hear the question
can
very
recognize
well,
him.
But there's a couple guys, and he's one of them. Also, if it's a good question, I was like, I bet that's Mitch.
More times than not.
We will do our little NBA preview coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. Yo! And we are brought to you by our friends at Pratt Dental. Pratt Dental in North Platte, Nebraska. They are led by Dr. Pratt, who is the only dentist in Nebraska that provides the BioClear method. He is certified, and I'll tell you what the BioClear method is. It is a less invasive manner to correct many aesthetic dilemmas in a permanent fashion. It's less appointments, less waiting time, and as I said, less invasive. Sometimes you can even get multiple restorations done in the same day. Give Pratt Dental a call, 308-221-2800. Andrew, we've been trying to get to this for a couple days, but as it's college football season around here, sometimes things get a little wonky, and sometimes Michigan has a staffer writing a manifesto that we have to get to. But
wait, what's going on in Michigan?
We finally have time to get to our NBA preview. We're just a couple days into the season. It's our predictions.
Well, and you know, it's actually kind of perfect because it comes off the main night of NBA basketball.
Yeah, the first big night. You had Tuesday, you just had kind of the appetizer, and then you got the main course last night with everybody else being in action. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a finals matchup and winner.
Okay.
We're going to do MVP.
Okay.
We're going to do biggest surprise, and that can mean whatever you want it to, and biggest disappointment.
Got it.
Where do you want to start?
I think we start off with the finals and our champion.
So I'm going pretty chalky here. I don't love it, but I don't think there's a lot of alternatives. There's a handful of teams I think that could make it from each league, but I'm going to go with Boston and Denver in the finals.
That's what I have.
And I've got Denver in 6.
I didn't put in 6 or anything, but I have Denver winning again back to back. I didn't love it at first because I want the Celtics to win. And I really want the Celtics to win. I'm not a Celtics fan,
right?
But Jason Tatum is from my hometown.
Yeah,
covered him a little bit in high school. So again, I'm 4 players. It's kind of how I live. I live my life, and I'd like to see them get over that hump, and I think they could. They have one of the best backcourts in basketball. Defensively, they are so solid. I mean, the addition of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis has really elevated that team to a new level. I think a level that even puts them above where they were last year.
I agree.
And that's saying a lot because this Boston team last year were they 1 in the East?
I think they were the top seed in the East. Yeah.
And they just underperformed.
Yeah.
They underwhelmed in the playoffs. I don't think you're going to get that performance this year. I was back and forth even on Tatum being my MVP of the league this year,
which is fair.
So I didn't have it. Ultimately, I changed and went to, as you already, coined the term, a chalkier pick. But I had Tatum as a close runner-up for MVP because I think this is the season that he either really separates himself as one of the best players in the league instead of the best young player in the league because he's getting to that age.
Not that young anymore.
He's not that young anymore. So he has to either be in the best player in the league category or
he's just another guy.
I don't really want to call him a jag, but
no, but in terms of like he's an all-star,
right.
He's like maybe 2nd or 3rd team All-NBA, but not that upper echelon of guy.
Correct. So it's a big year for the Celtics, and I think they have to get to the finals in order to
kind of validate some of those things.
Yeah, validate those claims, because what have we seen from the Heat over the past few seasons? It's Eric Spoelstra is a really good coach. Jimmy Butler is one of the best playoff players in the NBA.
Which is weird because he outperforms what he does the rest of the year.
Correct.
Yeah.
But what about those Heat teams make you think like that's a team that gets to the finals?
That's not a juggernaut by any means.
No, but they perform.
Yeah.
They play well. They're well coached, and that's just what they do. That's what the Celtics need to be this year.
Yeah.
They have to be a team that's really well coached and have guys that show up in the playoffs, not just in the regular season.
Yeah, so I do think, as I mentioned, I think Boston's in the finals, but I think the reason they can't eclipse Denver is because, as you mentioned, the difference between like a Spoelstra and a Joe Mazzulla is enormous. I thought Mazzulla was going to get fired last year, and obviously he didn't. But I thought that, I'm not sold on Joe Mazzulla. Let's put it that way. I'm not totally sold on him as an NBA coach. Some of his decision-making last year throughout the season was kind of head-scratching to me. And as talented as Jason Tatum is, I look at him and I go, I'm not totally sure if he's your best player, like unquestioned best player. I don't know if you win a title. And he's really, really good. But that's kind of what you're talking about between being the difference of like being one of those guys.
And that's how you win titles in the NBA. You have to have one guy on the team that's a dude.
Yeah.
Like Denver won last year because they have Jokic.
Yeah, I call them, it's a silly thing, and I didn't really even come up with this, but I call them Lulla stars. Like guys that can be the guy. Because there's a difference between like a superstar and, hey, first team All-NBA. There's a bunch of dudes like that in the league. An example of a guy that I don't think is one is Anthony Davis, and that'll come up later for me. But I don't think Anthony Davis is that guy. If he's your number one instead of LeBron, I don't think the Lakers are winning a title. And I think we're in the point where he has to be the number one over LeBron.
And I agree with you there.
And I don't know if Jason Tatum is more – I don't know if he's – obviously he's not LeBron, but I don't know if he's more LeBron or if he's more AD. And so far, he's leaning a little more AD to me. Obviously still a great player, but are you winning a title with him as your best guy?
In the NBA, can you build a team and have a team win the championship based on defense?
I mean, yeah, that's most of the teams that win the title are
Like the Heat had really good defense.
Yeah, are on the
And that
upper
was the-
half of the.
And it wasn't their offense?
No, the Heat were terrible on offense last year.
I think they averaged like in the high 90s.
Yeah, which now is awful. That's a bad number now, especially with the. But it's those great Warrior teams, like their defensive numbers were as good as their offensive numbers. It's just people don't pay attention.
Well, and
to that.
so I'm a Bulls fan, and the Bulls are kind of like that same claim that you're making about Anthony Davis. Like he's a really good player, and I think the Bulls have a ton of really good players, but I don't think they have a superstar.
No.
Like DeMar DeRozan is in that category of like where Jason Tatum has been.
I'd even put him down
right?
a couple
Yeah,
levels.
and Vucevic is like one of the best big men in the NBA, but he's not Jokic. He's not Embiid. He's not in that upper echelon either. And then you have Levine, who's a really good shooter, super athletic, but he's not in your Curry range.
Guys,
so
the Bulls have a bunch of guys that if they're your third or fourth options on a team, you're in incredible shape. If they're your first option on a team, I don't know what to tell you.
DeMar is like a number 2 on a team. Like I think that's fine.
Maybe I don't know about now. There was probably a point. DeMar's getting kind of long in the tooth a little bit. There's probably a point where DeMar was that guy. I don't know if he still is, and maybe he is, and we just because of the situation he's in, we're not really seeing it. But yeah, I mean, you don't have anybody on the Bulls that is a clear number one. You don't have anybody on some of those teams that are clear number ones, and that's my question about Boston, because I agree with the Drew Holiday pickup, I think is maybe even more impactful than the Damian Lillard pickup that preceded it.
Defensively, for sure.
And he upgrades a spot that they needed because they trade away Marcus Smart to Memphis, and Drew Holiday is a clear upgrade over Marcus Smart, and he brings
absolutely
almost the exact same things to the table plus a little more. So I like what they did in the offseason. My biggest question is Jason Tatum that guy? And I don't know.
So as a Celtics fan, am I going to be pleasantly surprised with the pickup that they had a couple weeks ago?
I mean, Drew Holiday is really good. Like he's
because I saw that and I was like, I want more threes.
That's why you have Porzingis.
I want more offense.
And you'll get more offense because they have more than just Tatum and Brown now.
The Celtics have plenty of offense. The question mark was going to be, do they still have
air raid? I want air raid in Boston.
Do they have the same defensive intensity without Marcus Smart? And now they do.
My MVP, close second, was Tatum. My current MVP is Luka Doncic. And I know that we kind of a couple of days
he's got to get some wins.
We're poo-pooing on him a little bit for just the way that he plays because he looks so slow moving out there on the court.
I don't love it.
But man, when you look at an MVP on a team, it all comes down to stats, right? And if you're the only person on your team and you're putting up triple doubles almost every night, you're going to be the MVP of the league.
Yeah. So the tricky thing there is Dallas is going to have to win enough to put him in that position because you do have to put up stats, but historically, you also probably need to be a top 4 seed in the playoffs. The only outlier there recently, I think, is Russell Westbrook, and he kind of took some of the shine off of that triple-double thing because it hadn't been done before in terms of averaging for the season since Oscar Robertson. So I agree that Luka's gonna put up the numbers to be an MVP. Is Dallas gonna win enough games? That's the key there. And that's my only hesitation. I went a little further. I went a little deeper on my MVP pick. I went Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out of OKC.
Yes.
And that ties right into my biggest surprise.
They're my biggest surprise too,
which is Oklahoma City Thunder. I think everybody thinks they're going to be good. I think they make it to the Western Conference Finals.
No, I think everybody thinks they're going to be good, and rightfully so because of where they were last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a play-in team, and this year they are easily a second-round playoff team. Easily.
At least. Like I said, I think I've got them going to the Western Conference Finals. My other biggest surprise, I think Zion Williamson plays at least 60 games.
Wow.
He's only done that once. Biggest disappointment, real quick before we go, I've got the Lakers for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier. I don't think AD is that guy. Who's your biggest disappointment?
My biggest disappointment, the 76ers.
Ooh, yeah.
I think they're going to tail off, especially because of all this James Harden drama.
Coming up next, we've got Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. Let's make some money.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
Were they using the cream cheese to butter the bagel?
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirl.
Here is Brian Edwards.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. Joining us now on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline is our guy, Brian Edwards, trying to make us a little bit of money. B, how you doing this morning?
B.
We don't have...
B, I can't hear you.
Are you on mute? What do we have going on here? Are we plugged in?
Check in.
Nope,
can't
nothing.
hear you.
We got nothing. Shane, is he muted? What's going on, bud?
That one button, Shane, remember the one box that like tends to be clicked every now and then?
There he is. There he is.
You can hear me now?
We got you.
Brian, how you doing this morning?
Doing well, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into it. I know sometimes you're a little hesitant to bet on your Gators, but with that big matchup, what is it, the world's largest cocktail party? Is that what they call it? They have Georgia this week. What are you feeling there?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Gators plus the 14.5. I would say, well, a couple things. Billy Napier's been really good as an underdog 27 times in his head coaching career, 19-7-1 against the spread with 12 outright wins. Now he's only been a double-digit underdog 10 times and 3-0 against the spread as during his tenure at UF, but 8-1-1 against the spread and 10 times the double-digit underdog, and actually 8-0-1 ATS last 9. Its first double-digit dog spot was his only non-cover. And, Georgia just has, other than the second half against South Carolina when they were down 14-3 at the break, and the Kentucky game, I just really don't think, that Georgia has looked overly impressive. They've had a pretty soft schedule, did not look very good against Vanderbilt. Now they're without their best player, Brock Bowers. And I think all that just leads to it being a close game. I'll take the 14 and a hook with Florida.
B, you mentioned Brock Bowers there. I guess, how much do you, when you're evaluating these, how many points do you kind of account for a tight end, even one as talented as Brock Bowers?
Yeah, no, I would probably say that Bowers is worth, I'd say at least 2 points in my mind because, Ladd McConkey has now gotten healthy and played, I want to say, the last 2 or 3 games after he had missed most of the season. So now they have another pretty good, proven weapon. But, Bowers is by far and away their leader in receptions, receiving yards, etc. So, I think he's worth a solid 2 points.
B, as we look at the next matchup on the list that you like, Colorado plus 17 at UCLA, kind of a weird spot for the Bruins. I'm still unsure if Chip Kelly has even named his starting quarterback this week, but UCLA still in the top 25. They did pick up a win against Stanford, pretty comfortable one at that last week. In Colorado, they know all too well what happened in that Stanford game a couple of weeks ago, but you still are favoring Colorado. Why is that?
Yeah, I like Colorado plus the 17, and you're right. From everything I read yesterday, Chip Kelly, so he went with Garbers last week. So he's played 3 quarterbacks now this year. Now more of the 5-star freshman who's, been up and down a lot better at home than on the road. Kelly he sounded like he was just not going to name a starter until the end of the week. So, we'll see. Now, UCLA is not as dynamic offensively as they normally are, but they are much better defensively. But look, Colorado got a much needed reprieve from the schedule, especially after that backbreaking loss, and actually got 15 days of rest because that was a Friday night game. And they are healthy and catching a big number. They're 2-1 ATS, 1 outright win as a double-digit dog this year, covering against USC and winning outright at TCU. Obviously had the dud against Oregon. But I think it's a good spot for Colorado catching a big number. And even if I don't think they'll get down 17, but if they do, we know with Shedeur Sanders and those receivers that, the backdoor cover could always be in play like it was against USC.
Brian, let's stick in the Pac-12 here with another matchup and a top 15 matchup at that, Oregon and Utah. I guess, with Utah, they've been really good, couple of 6-1 teams, but it just feels like that offensive situation is kind of always a concern. How are you feeling on this one?
Yeah, I made it a pick 'em, and so I think we're getting great line value with Utah. Utah has won 18 home games in a row. They're 3-1 against the spread at home this year. The lone non-cover, they were favored by 27. I know it was USC's defense, but I thought that Bryson Barnes, the quarterback, played pretty good last week. He had the critical pick 6, but that was his only mistake. He had 3 touchdown passes, a rushing touchdown, 57 rushing yards on 10 attempts. Had that 26-yard scramble with 16 seconds left to set up the game-winning field goal. And I just think Utah's better at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And Oregon's had dynamic offenses, going way back, obviously, to the Chip Kelly era. But in their last 3 games against Utah, they scored 20 last year. They scored 7 in the previous meeting and 10 in the previous meeting. So Utah has really held their offense down. And it's also revenge mode for Utah. They lost 20-17 at Oregon last year in a game that they, I thought had a really great shot at winning. And I think Utah is going to win outright. I'll have some of the money line as well at plus 200.
B, this wasn't on your list, but when talking about Oregon, it has me thinking a little bit about Bo Nix and where he sits in the Heisman voting right now. A win for Oregon could really elevate him on the Heisman odds list, and I kind of feel like he's still in that sleeper category, even though he has that one loss to Michael Penix, who's also 2 on the list right now, Ravi, behind JJ McCarthy. Do you have any outstanding like Heisman predictions as of right now, or has it been kind of all over the place that you're just staying away?
Well, I think that we kind of lost the value with Jaden Daniels, who I think, if you took a week or two ago, I think he was in double figures. I think he was 10 or 12 to 1. Now he's plus 300, at least where I'm looking at FanDuel right now. I have Carson Beck from preseason. I got him at 25 to 1 and 30 to 1. Looks like he's 30 to 1 right now. And with as wide open as it is, I haven't even looked at Beck's stats lately, but I mean, Georgia's going to have a lot of showcase games down the stretch, starting with Saturday, and then obviously they're at Tennessee, and then if they, are winning, they'll have the game in Atlanta, and they also have a game at home against Ole Miss, which is, so he's got some big games coming up where he can thrust himself into the picture. So I feel decent about that ticket from back in August or even before that.
B, your last college play of the weekend, going deep cut on me.
Yeah, off the radar.
The Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan. You can't talk about rivalries without Eastern and Western Michigan. Eastern Michigan is 3-point dog in that one. How are you feeling?
I feel great about Eastern Michigan. They've won 4 in a row over Western Michigan, including 45-23 in Kalamazoo last year. Eastern Michigan's unbeaten in 4 home games. This year, they've won their last 2 home games by 14-point margins. They have a great history as an underdog. Their last 50 as an underdog since the 2015 regular season finale. They're 39-10-1 against the spread. Western Michigan's lost 3 in a row, lost 6 of 7, only 1 win over an FBS opponent this year. And the wrong team is favored, and I like the Eagles plus the 3 at home.
Be away from college football. I don't think we got into this last week, but I thought maybe we could just touch on a mini recap. Did you put anything on UFC back on October 21st, last Saturday?
Yeah, I lost on Chimaev to win inside the distance, although he certainly had Usman's back most of the first round, and there was some moments where I thought he might get the choke, but I actually scored the fight for Usman. I had him winning the second and third round, and I did not give Chimaev a 10-8 in the first round because I didn't think he caused that much damage. I mean, he obviously had control, but I mean, I just feel like you need to at least draw a little blood on somebody to get a 10-8.
Well, speaking of drawing blood, what about that main card?
Yeah, it was good. And Makhachev, wow, what a statement victory. And now I think he'll be in the mix to maybe go up to 170 after he gave Volkanovski, a division below, 2 shots at it. Maybe he'll get to go up and try to be double champ at some point. So, yeah, good on him. But good on Volkanovski taking that fight on 11 days' notice. I'm sure his bank account reflects that move as well.
B, as we wrap up football for this week here, you've got a couple player props in the NFL that you like. First one, A.J. Brown over on those receiving yards.
Yeah, I've hit this 5 weeks in a row, and I don't think I shared it with you guys because, I didn't know DraftKings came out with these props so early, but it's 88.5 this week, last 5 games, and this goes back to, remember, the week 2 conversation that he had with Jalen on the sidelines. Ever since then, he's been getting highly targeted, and he's had 131, 175, 127, 131, and 137. 5 games in a row, so at least 127 all 5 times. So I'm going to just ride this until it bucks me off. And I also like Kyle Pitts over 34.5 receiving yards. I've hit this one 3 in a row, although it was a 3-hour sweat last week because Arthur Smith, a fool. They finally throw him the ball, his 4th target of the game with like 30 seconds left. He gets a 39-yard gain, sets up the game-winning field goal. I mean, this is not rocket science, Arthur.
I was going to say, B, fantasy owners everywhere are sweating out that Kyle Pitts bet with you.
They're sweating out that Kyle Pitts draft.
Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, fellas. Y'all have a great weekend.
Hey, thanks, B.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7, as we kick off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I think it's just per offensive coordinator per guy. You know what I mean? It's just the same thing like with the Rocky Long Tree. You see all the guys you took at places and you see the different variations that their spins on it. I think it's the same way. You can see some of the same concepts from that air raid offense, but then, you know, you see the differences. You see the run game. You know, I think he was the OC back in the day when we were at Arizona State, and I remember being true like air raid. You know what I mean? And now you see a little more emphasis on the run game, and they're doing a nice job with their stretch game, their counter game, you know, sniping the tight ends back across and stuff. So I think he's putting his spin on it, you know, as he goes and gets more comfortable with it. So it's making it hard to defend. Yeah.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and for this third hour, KFOR in Lincoln. We are joined now by our guy, Michael Bruntz, on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Bruntz, how you doing this morning?
Not bad. What's going on?
Oh, you know, just getting through another day, having a good time.
Another day, another dollar.
Yeah, you know, just trying to figure out how Nebraska is going to score any points the rest of the year. Just fun stuff like
Is that what you're trying to figure out?
Well, I'm always trying to figure that out, right? How's Bruntz as you look at the offense? I guess. I mean, has anything changed? It's not like they were lighting the world on fire before. I think we talked to one of your colleagues earlier this week, and they're like, well, I mean, how much of a drop-off can there actually be?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know, right? You know, I think the thing that you can say about the most recent run of injuries, I mean, I thought Justin Evan Jenkins played really well against Northwestern and at a variety of spots, which is kind of hard to do, especially as a young guy. So I think that was promising. I mean, we've seen little bits and pieces of Teddy Prohaska, and it's looked good at times. I don't think he was 100% for that Michigan game. And you know, Henry Lutovsky's played too. I mean, he's not a new guy. So, you know, I guess, you know, especially compared to the way that Nebraska's offensive line has been the last few years, I mean, they've probably got the most depth that they can lean on that they've had in quite a while. So, is that a silver lining? We'll see. But, you know, I think the biggest loss is going to be Billy Kemp because, you know, when you have a guy that you're at least building a game plan around like you did last week against Northwestern, not having a player of that caliber, that's hard to replace. And I think it's even harder to ask a guy like Jaden Doss to step in and, you know, kind of be ready to do that right away.
Bruntz, you mentioned JEJ. If we were playing fantasy football, and any position could be picked up, would Justin Evans Jenkins be the most added player this week?
Yeah. I mean, I would think so. Him or James Williams. I mean, if you can pick up individual defensive players, I think. But no, I mean, you know, Justin Evans Jenkins was a guy that they got late in his recruiting cycle. You know, Nebraska was kind of his biggest offer, I think, at the time. And you're kind of like, okay, you know, those guys sometimes pan out, sometimes they don't. He's put on a lot of weight, and you know, I know that the offensive coaches love his attitude. I mean, he's just kind of he's a Jersey guy. He's kind of got a brawler attitude, and they really like him. And anytime you have positional versatility like that, and you know, a guy has to understand how to play center, it kind of allows you to kind of holistically understand the offense. So I'm not surprised that he went in there and played well. I mean, I think, you know, when you kind of have the understanding that he does and probably has to have in the offense, I mean, you know, if it's guard or center or whatever, you can kind of make do. But he's a valuable piece. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that can do what he does. So he's going to get his time to shine. And, you know, hopefully, you know, knock on wood, they can avoid anything else injury-wise on the line. Because after this group of new guys, it does get a little thin.
Bruntz, does the James Williams emergence tell you more about the recruiting and evaluation eye of this Nebraska football staff, or more about their ability and willingness to develop guys that are coming from off the radar, whether it's scout team or walk on or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think James Williams, I think what it says more, it says both. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's more. You know, I think James Williams is a really good example of what this staff can do across the board. I mean, when you consider that, you know, he was invited to this post-grad camp this summer out of junior college, and they basically said, hey, we want to see what you can do. Come down here. And, you know, he was probably going to head back to junior college. He told me this when he committed back in June. But he was probably going to head back to junior college, but Nebraska wasn't the only Power 5 school that was sniffing around James Williams. I mean, if he would have gone back to junior college and done another year there and been recruitable, I mean, he would have Power 5 offers right now. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, Alabama was another school that was kind of trying to get him to come down and look at for kind of a similar camp to what Nebraska did, just to see what he had. So he wasn't completely unknown. However, I mean, I think what this staff is willing to do, and I think what some coaching staffs are kind of fall victim to is can I trust this guy to do everything? And on defense, I don't think you have to. I mean, I think if there's a guy with a very specific set of skills, which James Williams has, I mean, he's a pass rusher. That's what he does. And he probably needs to gain another 20 pounds, if we're being honest, to be able to be an every down type guy. But, you see a guy tearing it up on the scout team. You say, okay, we can throw this guy in there for 7 to 10 plays and just see what he can do. And they developed, some looks for him, and he went out and he did well. I mean, I know at least 3 of his 7 snaps, he was in the backfield with a hand on the quarterback in that game. And I think that's more difficult to do, and I think that's more unique to Matt Rule's staff, that they're constantly evaluating guys in season. They're constantly finding ways to either get somebody on the scout team to help them to throw in there, or they're looking at a guy like a Jeremiah Charles or a Bryce Turner who's playing wide receiver, and they say, okay, these guys are probably going to help us more likely on the defensive side of the ball. Let's move them now and kind of see how it goes. I mean, I think that's more difficult to do than, uncovering guys. I think there's a willingness from the staff to kind of take whatever advantage they have in recruiting in terms of, running camps differently or being really involved in camps. That's unique nowadays. But I think what they do a really good job of is the in-season stuff.
Bruntz said very specific set of skills, and every time I hear that,
Liam Neeson
taken every single time there, Bruntz.
That was not an accident. I meant to say that.
Hey, talking about recruitment though, and not just of guys that have come to camps and are playing today, but it kind of got lost in the shuffle of high school football last Friday. How big was it securing the recruitment of Caleb Benning?
Yeah, I mean that was a big one, and I wrote a message for it. I understand that a lot of people were wanting that commitment to happen and that recruitment to end sooner, but I think Caleb has kind of always gone about it his own way. I think that he wanted to basically kind of prove to staffs that had offered him that he was kind of worth the squeeze. And I think he took his time. I think he developed a really good relationship with Evan Cooper. I think what was important in that recruitment is, Caleb spent a lot of time around the coaching staff, not at recruiting events. He popped down there, hang out with the staff a little bit, kind of get a sense of how they operate. And I think that was important. And, Caleb's been, regardless of recruiting ranking, one of the best players in the state, without question this year. And he's the kind of guy that, you can plug in there. He's got a good feel for the game. The 3-3-5, he fits, I think, pretty well. And so that was a big one. I mean, it's, when you kind of look at the numbers of what Nebraska's done in state this year, he was the last guy that was kind of out there. And now they've got, the top 6 ranked guys in the state committed, according to 24/7 Sports. They've got 8 total. And, since Matt Rule and the staff have been here, that they've done a really nice job of backing up the talk of recruiting in state and getting guys to commit. So that's been, I think, a credit to the staff. But yeah, Caleb Benning is not second to anybody in terms of what he can do on the field. I think he's shown that this season.
Husker Nation, I'm staying home. Go Big Red.
Yeah, Bruntz, you mentioned the in-state recruiting. They've got 8 of the top 11 players. One of those, Caleb Pyfrom, just decommitted from Illinois recently. And probably the only guy that you look at and say, yeah, maybe you wish you would have gotten there is maybe Teddy Rizak, headed to Notre Dame. I guess just how have they so quickly sort of repaired at least the perception of their relationship with the in-state high schools and recruits from where it was with the previous staff, where it seemed like things got a little dicey towards the end there?
They show up. I mean, they say what they're going to do, and then they do what they say. Like, I think that's been really important. I think even when you go back and look at the way that Daniel Kalen's recruitment kind of played out, I think that's probably the most impressive out of any of them to me is that, you kind of were in a tough situation with pursuing the, Dylan Raiola.
Mm-hmm.
They were upfront with him. I don't think there was, any surprises there. And then when it came time that, they wanted to re-engage, they were right there. And he was receptive to that. Part of that is, Daniel's personality, I think he kind of always wanted to go to Nebraska, but I think it's a good example of kind of how they've operated. I mean, last November, were in Omaha a ton, and that was a place where they needed to kind of repair things. I know everybody was kind of, enamored with Ed Foley's trips around Nebraska, and that stuff it's important, but I think also, people need to understand that it wasn't just Foley that was out there in Nebraska. I mean, they had a lot of guys dedicated to Omaha. I know Tony White's been at Millard North a ton. He was a reason that Caden Vermoss committed as early as he did. Locking up Tyson Terry early in that 25 class, I think that's huge. And I want to say, they've done a really good job of, not only, finding guys like the Jalen Lloyds that didn't have a lot of steam behind them, but they've also gone and won these elbows out recruiting battles like the Carter Nelsons and guys like that locally. So, I think the biggest thing that my takeaway is they finally started to recruit Nebraska as though the Nebraska kids were not just assumed that they were coming to Lincoln. And I think that's been something that's kind of hurt the program for a long time. You have to recruit kids in Omaha like your Minnesota, like your Iowa, because there's a lot of talent in this state now. That's the other thing. And I think they've done a good job of kind of coming in and really being aggressive with a lot of those kids.
Bruntz, speaking of those kids, we talked a little bit earlier on the show about those that are guys that could play in the 4-game window, but you don't want to afford losing the red shirt title to. And two on the offensive line, Sam Sledge and Gunnar Gatula are two that really interest me that have emerged and will get the opportunity soon, it seems. Out of those two guys, who are you most looking forward to seeing in action? Because early in the spring, we heard Gatula's name come off the chart first, but as of recent, it seems like Sledge is starting to really come up as possibly that first of the freshies to go.
Yeah, no, they've loved Sledge since he got there, and you kind of go into his background. I mean, he's played pretty much every position on the offensive line. I want to say he actually started out his high school career as a tight end, even. So he's a really athletic kid. He's obviously got the family bloodlines of good offensive line play, which never hurts. But he's been there. I mean, he's been on the depth chart for a number of weeks. I'm kind of curious to see with, Teddy having to move into the starting lineup, how they handle the jumbo sets, because maybe that's where you see a Sledge or you see a Prohaska, or not a Prohaska, or a Gatula or somebody like that step in. I mean, I think they're going to be really careful to not burn red shirts if they don't have to, especially along the offensive line, because you look at the way the classes are. I mean, they've got a lot of really old veteran guys, and they're going to have to kind of flip the group a little bit with the class that's a freshman right now, the class that's going to be coming in the spring and in the summer. So they're going to be careful, but I am kind of eager to see how those guys look. And like I said, I mean, I think Sledge is athletic enough. Maybe you could do something with him with a pass play or something like that, even to a lineman guys aren't watching for. But both those guys, I think, have bright futures and certainly are getting a ton of reps just with the way that offensive line depth chart's kind of played out this season.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7. Bruntz, of some of those guys outside of the offensive linemen that are likely redshirt candidates that haven't played yet, or you're hoping that they still keep their redshirt intact by staying under that 4 games, are there any names that you're looking at to make a substantial impact? I mean, offensive line is the most likely spot just because of the injuries there, but is there anywhere else you're looking? Coach Rule said a couple names. He threw like Sua out there and Vincent Carroll Jackson and some guys like that as well. Is there anybody you're looking at as somebody you think might actually make an impact?
That's left from that freshman class?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're kind of getting to that point now where, you've seen a little bit of Sua. I'm not sure how many games he's played in. I know he played at Colorado and he played another game too. So I think they would like to redshirt him if possible. I don't know. I mean, of guys that we haven't seen yet, I mean, I think you're going to see Marquise Buford. He's obviously not a freshman, but I think he could have an impact down the road, in this season. But I don't know. I mean, Quentin Ives, I mean, he played one play, against Northwestern and didn't get the ball. But, I mean, I'm kind of eager to see what he can do. Maybe they find a good spot for him to go in and do something maybe. But I don't know. I mean, it feels like at this point in the season, you're not really able to just kind of tinker with guys. You know what I mean? Like you kind of needed to do it early in the year if you're going to do it. But I don't know. I think Ives might be the one guy that you could see a little bit more of if they find a spot where he can contribute, kind of not along like a James Williams situation, but you get a couple packages for him and that he can execute and maybe take advantage of that.
Bruntz, we joke about it a lot on the show about just handing him a blank check, but honestly, there could be a lot of truth to it. If you're Nebraska, how much do you have to pay Tony White to keep him here?
A lot. Well, I don't know if it's just a money thing with him. Like he's going to be a head coach somewhere. Like I have zero doubt in my mind about that. So yeah, I mean, I would hope that he gets a raise based on what he's done this year. I think he's deserving of it. I think he's also got a little bit of wiggle room in that assistant coach pool to splash some cash around if you want to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think, he's been unquestionably the MVP over there of the assistant coaches. I think he's done a really good job of getting guys on that defense to buy in. And, when he was hired, guys in our reporters in our network that have known Tony White for a long time, I mean, the first thing they said was like, this guy's the real deal. He's going to be a head coach. He just has that attitude and he's a smart guy and, kind of knows what he wants in a program. So I think that's coming down the road at some point. But yeah, I mean, I think with what he's done this year, he's going to have opportunities, and I think Nebraska's going to have to make sure that they do whatever they can to keep him around. You need to keep this defensive train rolling down the tracks a little bit because, I mean, there's going to be guys with decisions to make. Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, guys that have 60 years if they want them, and if you get a couple of those guys back, you get Tony White back. I mean, that defense has a chance to be really scary next year, even more so than they already are.
Bruntz, do you worry at all about Tony White leaving for a different defensive coordinator job, or do you think it's kind of one of those situations that if he leaves, it's to be a head coach somewhere?
I don't know. I mean, maybe the right situation comes up. I don't know. I mean, I think he has an appreciation for Nebraska. I think that I think Matt Rule runs things a little bit differently too than a lot of head coaches do. I think if you kind of listen to what Tony White said this season, I think he's developed an appreciation for that, and with how hands-on Matt Rule is with a lot of things, and how intentional he is with things. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that the money question, maybe that helps you defend against the offers to leave and be defensive coordinator somewhere else, but. I think Tony White's trajectory is more towards a head coaching type position, rather than just continuing to kick the can down the road with defensive coordinator jobs.
Speaking of coaching styles and another coach in a coordinator spot, Marcus Satterfield, I really enjoyed hearing him talk about how he handled the Heinrich Haarberg situation in moment in that game over the weekend by not turning to the backup. They focused on trying to get him in rhythm and back on track. Did you like that coaching style as much as I did, or when watching that game, were you like, I kind of want to see potentially what Jeff Sims has to offer in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think for an offensive coordinator, it probably pays to have a little bit of patience. I mean, given how that game played out, I mean, what was it? 2 of the first 3 possessions, you had turnovers, and I don't know. I mean, I think part of it too is, I mean, they were pretty out there of saying that Haarberg's their guy, and I think they were going to stick with him a little bit more than maybe if that situation happened, let's say 2-3 games ago. If it's like that against a non-con opponent or something like that, I can see where you go to a healthy Jeff Sims. But I think to me, that they like what Haarberg can do. They've game planned a lot around what his strengths are, I think. And Matt Rule even said, when Jeff Sims was injured, and you're kind of asking about what direction they were going to go quarterback wise. I mean, I think they're very cognizant of what pulling a quarterback does to confidence and what it does to just the team. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me a ton that they stuck with him. I mean, the surprise for anything for me was that they were so just like, okay, Haarberg's our guy. They eliminated any questions going into that Northwestern game. So they were going to continue down that road, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Bruntz, as you look forward to the Purdue game, is there anything that you think that you've seen from Purdue that you think could give Nebraska trouble?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you watch them, I mean, you can see kind of the framework of a decent team. Like, I think they've got good skill guys. I mean, I think this is probably one of the better teams of skill position players that Nebraska will play this season. And, unfortunately for Purdue, they make a ton of mistakes. They certainly, have, they're a kind of a tough team to wrap your head around a little bit, but they play like a team under a first-year head coach. And I think, that's what kind of scares you a little bit, because if you kind of start to put it together a little bit on the road, you maybe take advantage of a Nebraska mistake or two, and Nebraska could be in trouble there. The Maccabee is one of the better running backs they're going to see. And like I said, I mean, I think the skill position players on the outside have the ability to give Nebraska some issues. And, the one kind of Achilles heel you've had in this defense this year is they have given up some big plays, and they have given up some plays through the air. So that worries you a little bit. But, the question, of course, for Nebraska's offense is, are you going to be able to get to 20? I mean, that to me is the magic number. If you can score 20 points on offense over these next 5, you probably feel good about how things are going to go. But Purdue has the potential to come in here and win that game. I wouldn't be overlooking them.
Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Bruntz, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Bruntsy.
That's our guy, Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Always enjoy talking to Bruntsy. Coming up next, it's time for the Hurrdat Hot Seat. If you want to ask us any questions, give us a call. 888-638-4876 on that Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Otherwise, Andrew and I will just fire back and forth at each other. Coming up next on Hurrdat Sports.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers with me as well. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. That's statewide, in case you were wondering. We got you covered from border to border here. And you know who has people covered here in the state of Nebraska is the Teammates Mentoring Program, founded by Dr. Tom and Nancy Osborne in 1991. Their mission is to positively impact the world by inspiring students to reach their full potential through mentoring. One in three young people will grow up without a mentor, and that's what the Teammates Mentoring Program is seeking to solve. Mentors and mentees meet in school during the day for about 30 minutes once a week to play a board game, talk, just work on crafts, whatever you want to do, depending on what your mentor and mentee relationship is like. The Teammates Mentoring Program has it covered. Go to teammates.org to become a mentor today. And, you know, you could do a little game like we like to play here on the Hurrdat Hot Seat. You could play a little AMA, as we like to do here, and that's what we're about to do now. Andrew, are you ready for the Hurrdat Hot Seat?
Let's go.
Is it too steamy? Are you ready to go?
No, I'm ready.
All right. You want to go first or you want me to go first?
I'll kick it off.
All right.
Hypothetically.
Let's do it.
And this fits perfectly because Shane.
I love hypotheticals.
It kind of started around today's show started around a similar prompt to this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on, Shane. Hypothetically, you're at a restaurant and you realize You have no money to foot the bill.
Okay.
What are you doing to get out of paying the bill?
Ooh, okay. So
there was a guy recently that faked over 50 heart attacks at different restaurants.
I saw that.
Out of pain.
And he ended up getting arrested, right?
Yep, and he got arrested. So this is where this question was born.
So I'm assuming, do I actually have no money or do I just forget my wallet?
You have no money.
Okay.
Like you don't have the funds to pay the bill.
So, because I do have like a credit card number memorized, so that if I forget my wallet, I can
That's
just
wild.
I've got a little OCD with stuff like that, but I have the number,
I don't even know half my passwords.
The
like I just start
date.
typing in I think it may be this one or that one or this one.
I on passwords I do rely pretty heavily on my computer to have it stored somewhere or my phone or whatever. Do the Face ID with the phone, right? But so assuming I have no money. I mean, first of all,
Are you crying?
No, I'm pretty good about managing my finances and making sure I have money. So I probably wouldn't go out to eat if I was in that situation. But let's say it catches me off guard, whatever, something weird happens. I would probably see if I'm out with my wife. She's a professional chef. I'd be like, hey, I messed up here. Can my wife provide some chef services for the next couple hours here to make this right? Like that.
Hey honey, you go work, I'm going home.
No, it's like I'll wash dishes or something while I do that, but you're gonna get more value out of my wife making some desserts or something. So what can we do here? So that's probably the route I'm going is trading.
You're not gonna try to go to the bar and try to sweet talk somebody to pay for your
and if that doesn't work, I'd would feel so bad. I'd be like, okay, here's my information. I will come back. Please just here's the info. I am really sorry about this. It was a mistake. I will come back tomorrow whenever I have money and pay the bill.
So you're not faking a heart attack?
No. And I could, because I've got the diabetes thing. I could fake a diabetic emergency, but I don't like to throw that out there. So what about you?
I don't know. I probably would just wash the dishes, like you said. Or I would put myself to work because I would feel so bad.
Yeah.
I would be embarrassed.
Yeah, I would be super embarrassed. Yeah,
and so I would hope that they wouldn't make a big deal about it, like a big scene.
Yeah.
At least nowadays, a lot of restaurants, because of social media and how the good grace gesture has started to storm through, and that's how you actually get a lot of business. If you're like, hey, all right, here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah,
we're gonna make this a social media video. It's gonna benefit your restaurant.
Yeah,
but then maybe that's what I do. Maybe I turn it all around and say, you know what, I'll take on the embarrassment. I'm gonna make this social media video, and we're gonna post it on or send it to the people that.
Yeah, your social media team
put out all the good news on Facebook, Reels, and TikTok and things like that. And boom, you're going to get a lot of people liking it, sharing it, and then you'll probably get more clientele.
Yeah,
because you did this one nice thing.
Okay, so you're gonna try and social media.
Maybe I'll do a little sales pitch. Look at me thinking through that situation, guys, on my feet in my seat.
You don't know
that hot seat.
You don't know this. I'm a social media professional. Come on, guys. Let me help you out here.
I don't have money, but I do have an iPhone.
I do have a very particular set of skills.
Skills that make me a nightmare.
All right. My first question. Speaking of social media, we did a TikTok at Hurrdat Sports a couple weeks ago about asking fans what would they give up. This was specific to Nebraska, but what would they give up for a national championship?
Sure.
So I'm going to expand the question out to it can be any team, whatever your favorite team is, whatever team you want a title in the most. First of all, what is that team?
Probably the Bears.
And what would you realistically give up in order to see them win a Super Bowl?
In person or
no, just in general.
TV?
They win a Super Bowl, you're happy.
What would I give up?
What are you giving up?
I would give up playing video games forever.
Forever.
And
that's a pretty. I mean, you play.
I play video games almost every day.
Yes,
almost every day.
That's a pretty big sacrifice there. So for one Super Bowl for the Bears, you're giving up video games
because I know that I'm at the point in my life to where I probably should start playing less and less, even though I won't.
Fair, yeah, okay.
because like there are things around my house that just don't get done.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm going to play video games today.
Yeah.
Where I could have like, vacuumed the floors, or I could have mowed the grass this day. Instead, I let it grow a little bit more. And I got to do it like a different day. And I just push things off.
Sure.
It would probably give me like a better like chance at balance.
Okay.
A work-life balance. So I would give up video games though, because I love playing video games.
And how much of that does that have to do with like how happy it would make like your dad, who's a huge Bears fan, right? Like how much of that are you factoring in?
So actually, he's not like a huge NFL fan.
Okay.
Like, he used to be a bigger Bears fan than he is. It would just make my brother and I. Can you hear me?
Oh, I think, did we lose it?
Can you hear me? I feel like I may still be going on the
Yeah.
air. Am I still going on the air, Shane?
No, but we'll figure it out here.
Did we just lose Andrew? What happened? Is that back? Are we good? Okay, just keep talking.
So anyway, I'm going to lean into Robbie's mic.
Yeah, here we go. We'll just share.
No, it would make my brother and I super happy.
Oh, there we go. He's back.
My brother and I super happy.
Okay.
It's kind of like I was breaking up there, and I just got bad service in Nebraska. I was just not near a cell tower.
Just got to get that cell
I would
phone
give up
service.
Mountain Dew for the Raiders to win.
Yeah, soda would be a good one for me too.
Ooh.
That would be hard.
I'm not giving up soda. Like for any team to win a title, like I'm not giving up soda.
Yeah, but
What are you giving up?
I can move over to energy drinks after that, so I'm it's a win-win.
I just don't love energy drinks enough.
I would probably. I mean, I was thinking about this. So it's definitely either a Nebraska football national title or a Creighton basketball national title, and they're about equal for me, if I'm being totally honest. I would I think I would go vegetarian for a year.
Wow.
I think
that would suck.
That's where I landed. I would go vegetarian for a year.
Not even pescatarian?
Being pescatarian wouldn't actually even be that much of a sacrifice for me because I love seafood.
Okay.
So, and listen, I love, like red meat and stuff like that and bacon and whatever, but going pescatarian would actually be pretty easy for me. Going full vegetarian would be a real challenge. I don't think I could do it forever, but I could do it for a year.
If it was like, let's say, like 10 years ago before you became a diabetic, would you have given up weightlifting?
No, probably not. If I'm being real, I don't think I would have. Like I don't think I would have given it up.
So on YouTube here, Ken says tacos for life. I love tacos. And Corey says, I don't know exactly where the line is, but there isn't a lot I wouldn't give up to watch Nebraska baseball win the CWS.
That would be cool.
That would be sick.
That would be super cool. Man, that's interesting. I think I would go vegetarian for a year. I think pretty easily. Not that it would be easy, but I'd readily give that up. I'm not sure what past that. Like I know some people talk like, oh, I'd give up my phone. Like I use my phone too much. Like that's not
I couldn't
realistic.
be able. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do my job. Like that's just there's too much there attached to that.
You would pretty much die if you had to give up your phone, wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah, it'd be terrible
because you couldn't make a living.
Well, so
you couldn't survive
forever. That would be hard.
I could give it up for a period of time, but not like long term.
Well, because like there are times where I'm like, hey, like I don't want to touch my phone this
just like
week.
shut it
like
down.
If I was when I went on my family vacation, like I was on my phone like a decent amount, but I wish I probably would have said like, hey, like we're limiting activity.
Yeah.
Like when your mom would like say growing up, like, hey, you can't play your Game Boy.
Too much screen time.
Right. It should have been like, you're capped like 2 hours a day or something.
Yeah.
And I wish I would do that more because I feel very refreshed when I'm not staring at my phone.
For sure. All right. The Hurrdat Hot Seat continues next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on a Thursday. We are continuing with the Hurrdat hot seat because I think we only got through one question each. There. So I believe it is your turn, Andrew. Let's go.
Question for you. And I saw this prompt, I want to say yesterday, maybe it was a couple of days ago. Caleb Williams is one of the best quarterback prospects we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Coming out of college. Out of the last 20 years of first overall picks that were quarterbacks, and I have them for you, so you don't have to look them up. Who would you take Caleb Williams over?
Okay, let's start going.
So 2001 was Michael Vick.
Ooh, that one's really tough because I probably would take Caleb Williams over Michael Vick.
David Carr in 2002.
Yes.
Carson Palmer in 2003.
Ooh, that one's tough because he was pretty good.
He was very good.
Bad situation for a long time. Was really good with the Cardinals. I'll say yes because the upside's higher on Caleb Williams.
Eli Manning in 2004.
Yes.
Who won
2 Super Bowls.
I
still think he's trash.
Alex Smith in 2005.
Yes, although I love Alex Smith.
Shane's favorite, Jamarcus Russell in 2007.
Absolutely not. No, I'm just
kidding.
Yes.
We would never do Shane dirty.
Get him out of here.
We love Jamarcus.
2009, Matt Stafford.
I'd probably say no there.
You would take Matthew Stafford over Caleb Williams.
I think so. All things being equal, I think. And it's hard because I know so much more about Matt Stafford, but if his career plays out the way it does, Yeah, I'd probably take Matt Stafford.
Sam Bradford in 2010.
No, I'll go ahead and take Caleb Williams.
Oh,
there.
really? 2011, Cam Newton.
Oh, that one's tough because it was a really, really high peak.
And Cam Newton was like
won an MVP, made it to a Super Bowl.
In college too, and he had that one season where won the BCS national championship and was
Heisman,
like, poof.
Yeah.
He is the best quarterback we've seen in a long time. That's kind of the conversation
If
too.
you could have built around him a little bit better, he would have lasted a little longer.
Yeah, I don't think the situation was great. I think I'd take Cam Newton.
Andrew Luck in 2012.
I'd take Andrew Luck.
Over Caleb Williams?
Yep.
Jameis Winston.
I will not take Jameis Winston.
In 2015. Jared Goff in 2016.
Ooh, that one's really tricky. I'm going to say no. I wouldn't take Jared Goff, but it's closer.
I would take Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
over Jared Goff.
I'd take Caleb Williams, but it's closer than I thought it would be.
Baker Mayfield in 18.
Caleb.
Kyler Murray in 2019.
Caleb.
Which, if you think about it, like they're kind of the same player.
They're similar. I think Caleb's obviously a little bit bigger, and so I trust it a little bit more. Also, I'm assuming that he watches film ever, unlike Kyler Murray, so that's kind of an assumption.
Kyler Murray plays a lot of video games like me.
He's like you. He needs to give it up to win a title.
2020, Joe Burrow.
No, I love Joe Burrow. I'm taking Joe Burrow.
Trevor Lawrence in 2021.
Here's my generational talent. This is where it gets tricky.
Is this a Lulla star?
Oh gosh, this one's really I knew this one was coming, and it was gonna be the toughest one. Shoot. I think that Trevor Lawrence was a better prospect. I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence.
And then Bryce Young in 2023.
I'll take Caleb Williams.
So you took Caleb Williams over like 4 or 5 of these guys?
Over most of the guys, except...
I'm sorry, you didn't take him over 4 or 5 of these guys?
Yeah, so I think Stafford was the first one I didn't.
Well, you were between Palmer and Vic, too. Did you end up taking...
I ended up taking Williams over those guys.
Okay.
Palmer was close. But
so then it was Stafford. Then you said you'd take Luck.
I would take Luck.
Which I think is pretty bold.
Yeah. I think he was a better prospect. Obviously, his career didn't go the way you wanted it to.
You think he was a better prospect than Caleb Williams?
I do, yeah.
Man, I don't know if I can agree with that.
Andrew Luck was, I think he was.
You passed on Jameis Winston, who, as I think it was Ken said on YouTube, comes with 20 pounds of crab legs. You like seafood.
He does. More, yeah, I'm okay on Jameis.
And you said you'd keep Burrow and Lawrence. So 4.
And Newton.
And Newton. So yeah, 5.
Yeah.
5 total players, which, I don't think it's a bad list. I think Michael Vick is interesting.
That one's super hard because
Caleb Williams is a better prospect, but I still think I'd take Michael Vick.
I don't know if he's a better prospect. Like, I don't...
Looked at today, Caleb Williams, I think, is a better prospect than Vick, but I would still take Vick.
But
they're neck and neck.
It's hard because...
It's not like they go from step 1 to step 5.
Vick would be seen even as a better prospect today than he was in 2001.
Sure.
So that's really tricky because he was ahead of his time. Also, okay, his situation matters so much too, because if he gets drafted by Andy Reid instead of goes there later in his career, his whole career is different.
Oh, sure.
So that's really, really tricky. Michael Vick was one of the tougher ones for me. That one is incredibly difficult.
I would take Michael Vick.
In terms of physical abilities, Michael Vick is as special as any quarterback prospect we've ever seen.
I would take Cam Newton over Caleb Williams. And I would take Joe Burrow over Caleb Williams. I would take Caleb, though, over everybody else. I would take him over Lawrence. I know that one's close.
Yeah.
And Lawrence was also in a better position in college than Caleb Williams, team-wise.
Yeah, their defense was way better. Offensively, it's probably close in terms of talent and weapons. But
Matt Stafford was great at Georgia. Like, I'm not going to take that away from him, but I still would take Caleb Williams over him.
Yeah, it's hard because I'm conflating like what they were as a prospect and what I know they've done in the NFL. So it's really hard to separate those two things. I think Matt Stafford in a better situation is like an all-timer. I really do.
And that case can be made as well. But outside of that, there are some on this list that are just easy.
Yeah, no-brainers. I mean,
easy to kick to the curb. Like the hardest one, I think, was probably Baker Mayfield. Trying to separate those two.
I'm good. You can have Baker Mayfield. I'm going to pass on that.
But they're both Lincoln Riley fines. Baker was awesome in college.
No, he was incredible. Yeah, no, all credit to Baker.
Take away what he's done in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like Baker Mayfield could really give Caleb Williams a run for his money
for what he did in college.
Prospect.
Yeah, I don't think physically he has as many of the tools. I think Caleb is more special physically. But in terms of college production, yeah, like Baker Mayfield's up there with anybody. All right, my number 2. This is this starts to come up with me around this time of year because people know how I feel about Thanksgiving food. But what is your least popular food take?
Like something I like that people are just
or
like,
something
what?
you don't like that people are like, dude, that's awesome. What do you like? For me, I am not a turkey guy. I don't like turkey.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
I wish that it wasn't served at Thanksgiving. I am not interested in turkey at all. I just don't like it. I think it's a trash bird. Not a fan. That's probably my least popular, although maybe more controversial because there are a lot of people on the no turkey train with me, but obviously a lot of people get upset about it. So like that's
the problem with turkey is, and I've been told this before, it takes too long to cook, blah, 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 all that stuff. And the people that do cook it, I appreciate that if it does take that long for you to cook it. But the thing is with turkey, though, you got like 80% of it is probably not the best, but you do have like a small percent, depending upon where you get it, how it's done, that can be really good.
Okay, so I guess my least popular food take, because I am picky.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to not like eggs. I do now.
Oh, okay.
I used to not like eggs.
That would be a hot take.
Cheese was the same thing for me, like sliced cheese. I like that now. Didn't like it before. Like I didn't like cheese on burgers.
Ooh, okay.
So like my taste buds have come a long way.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't like when like you get food. I like simple food.
Okay.
I like food that doesn't have a lot of things on it.
Okay.
Or in it. So like there was like this salad that we had for my sister's wedding that had just a ton of junk in it and very little lettuce. All I want is the lettuce and the dressing. Like that's it. So like I would say like when you overdo like something so simple.
Okay.
Like you're making I don't like mushrooms. I don't like
mushrooms either.
I don't like
but if you're getting a steak, you don't want like the sauce and the
right.
mushrooms
I don't want
and
this. I don't want. I just want the steak.
Yeah,
right.
Give me the steak.
Yeah. I don't need.
Okay.
I don't need A1. I don't need anything. Just give me the steak.
So you don't like junk in your salad? Fine.
I just don't like junk in my trunk.
I think that's a fair take. All right. That was my number 2. So what's your number 3?
Which is the single hardest position to play in all of sports?
Ooh, this one's tough.
Obviously subjective.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. People often say, and I think this is more true than ever, the single hardest skill is hitting a baseball. Some of the things that pitchers do now it just is nothing short of witchcraft. Like I don't understand it. I don't like it's crazy how hard they throw and how much the ball moves. So I want to acknowledge that as a skill set and how difficult that is. But I genuinely do think it's probably NFL quarterback. There is so much going on. And we talk about this a lot when we're talking about, like prospects or generational talent or physical ability versus the ability to actually play the position. I did this exercise, I don't know, like a month ago where I went through every starting quarterback in the NFL. And their average star rating coming out of high school was 3.2. The 4 and 5 star guys don't make it a lot of the time. And you've got guys that had like one scholarship offer coming out of high school or one scholarship offer coming out of JUCO that end up being Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers or guys like that, right? So it's the hardest position to evaluate, I think, because it is the hardest position to play because there is just so much going on and you have to have so much more than just the physical abilities to be able to do it well.
Yeah, position is like the key word here because you can't just go out and say golf. Because golf may be the hardest sport to play,
not a position.
But it's not a position.
Right.
It's the same thing with tennis.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking tennis for a hot sec
super
because
hard.
you have 100-mile-an-hour serve coming your way.
Like
and you have to return
140
it.
on something. Yeah. No, it's crazy.
But when it goes to positions, there are a couple of things. Like you mentioned being a major league pitcher. I think being a major league baseball catcher is extremely difficult.
Yeah, incredibly hard.
I think being an NFL cornerback, not quarter, but corner.
Yeah, you're just on an island out there.
Well, not only that, like you tend to be matched up against the best skill player on the field. And that person normally is taller than you. And could be faster than you.
Sure.
And you have to backpedal.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you start. You're backpedaling.
Incredibly challenging.
And then man-to-man versus zone, picking up things.
A lot of times you're on your own out there.
So I think that one is an incredibly tough position to be in. If I had to choose, being a hockey goalie too, that would stink.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would probably go NFL corner.
Long snapper.
Long snapper.
That is the show for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Ton of football on a Football Friday here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.